Wow, YouTube's cooperating? Awesome. That never happens. Hey, we're live.
Cool.
All right. Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to Talking Heads, your once-week live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff. We got a special guest today.
I think I'm Vince. I don't know. How did I end up here? Is this the grocery store?
Wait, what? Who are you? Thank you for joining. Some of you might know Vince, frequent to PDX LAN and overall Discord delinquent we have over on our chat. But thank you for joining. A lot of my co-hosts were either jet lagged to all hell or just generally unavailable. So thanks for joining us on late notice.
Weird. Why would everybody be jet lagged all of a sudden? What happened?
That is a great question because I feel great. I took less than a day to adjust going to Taipei, and it took me about 24 hours from getting back to be like right back in the swing of things. Like woke up at 6 a.m. Tuesday morning like nothing ever happened. So
cool.
Apparently jet lag like doesn't affect me. So anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Wednesday night or in podcast form over on Spotify or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek. All super chats are read on the air so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. We do drink alcohol on the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. As a bonus, you'll get exclusive access to my Discord server where you can chat with myself, John, Rhett, Steve, Vince, all the hosts from Talking Heads, and join the awesome community that hangs out over there. Welcome to the show. So hey, who are you? And what can you tell us about yourself?
Well, so I go by Circuit Rewind these days. It's one of my 20 handles on the internet because I don't know, like something about retro something or others. I don't know. I can't figure it out. All right. But no, I like tech. I like nerding out about old tech, some new tech, hybrids of old and new tech together for some reason. And lots and lots of really janky stuff. I don't know. Something about X99, AliExpress.
Something Voodoo on a brand new PC. Something 3080 on an AGP slot. Like, yeah, if you like weird and janky, go check out Vince over at Circuit Rewind. Now, you know I've been friends for quite a few years now. You joined my Patreon, and then, like, I think that same year I showed up to PDX LAN finally for the first time ever. I was always aware of PDX LAN, but seemingly always had a conflict whenever I thought about attending. And then one year I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to go. And I've been to every LAN since. And that's been 4.5. Like the first LAN back from COVID, I went just as kind of like an observer. And then I've been to everyone since. So
yeah, I've been to virtually every single one. There's a couple I skipped for reasons, but virtually every single one since 2014.
Yeah.
I will say 1 year, I forgot about this, but my buddy Krause, who also goes a bunch, he reminded me of this. There's a bunch of us that skipped because BlizzCon was the same weekend, and for whatever reason, we chose BlizzCon instead of PDX LAN. But
yeah,
otherwise, we've been, I've been to almost all of them for over a decade straight now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny is my first taste of like an organized LAN of any kind was actually QuakeCon. I
want to go there.
Yeah,
I want to go there.
I went to QuakeCon in when was that? Late 2018, I think. And I was doing some work for Modders Inc. I also did a sponsored case mod from Bethesda, and so I was like an invited person to do a case mod. And that did really well, was really well received, and saw like a first like major LAN party firsthand over there. And that actually kind of, you know, re-whetted my appetite for wanting to attend a LAN. And then I'm like, I should go to PDX LAN. And then COVID happened.
Yeah, and also PDX LAN has changed considerably between then and now because like it used to be 3 times a year, right?
Yeah.
And now it's dropped down to twice a year. But at the same time, they had a couple, not many, right before COVID happened in the new venue. But the thing is, the new venue holds between 800 to 1,000.
Yeah.
And the last venue capped at 550. So even though it's only twice a year, we get a lot more friends in there, a lot of new people, and I do like the new venue a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I never attended the old venue, which was over by Mall 205 in Portland. The new venue is up Clark County Event Center, just north of us, Ridgefield, Vancouver, Washington. It's a fantastic venue. If you have not attended, think about doing so. And in fact, if you're a member of the Craft Computing Discord or Patreon, we do a group buy. And so if you're interested in getting in, sitting with our group, we have actually one of the largest group buys that's part of the LAN now. I think we're up to 24 or 26 seats or something like that. And then events come with your own group of 10 or 12 people or something like that.
Oh no, much larger.
Okay,
one guy in the group buys about 15 seats.
Okay, yeah.
So no, we are the group I'm in is 30-ish.
Yeah.
We are a massive group because we're 1.5 tables, basically almost the full length.
Yeah.
And that group is actually splintered off into another group that splintered off into another group that splintered off into another group. And I actually did a documentary on this a couple of years ago.
Nice.
Where we tried to figure out who went where and where they came from and a bunch of the different groups' histories, and they all come back to the group that I'm in, which is, I think, the second or third oldest group in PDX LAN next to, like, the staff and what was known as Table 24 back in the day. But, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So, yeah, if you've ever wanted to join a LAN party, PDX LAN, it's a great place to be.
One specific note about fall this year, Jeff, I don't know if you've heard this one yet. So you mentioned the Clark County Fairgrounds. You know that main hall is, where the main building is 3 separate halls, right?
Yes, yeah.
The hall next door, the same weekend for fall PDX LAN this year,
that's right,
is an anime convention.
Yes.
So we're going to have a nice mix of nerds, 2 different groups of nerds, and like me, I have tickets for both. I'm going to go back and forth.
I haven't bought my other pass yet. There's going to be so many dual passes.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be fun. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, what you drinking?
That was actually what I was just about to ask you. So I know you're actually a huge cider fan. So actually, in honor of you, I've got a couple ciders for the night. I went to the fridge and I've got a couple Two Town Cider House. I'm going to start with a Maid Marian. It is a blackberry hard cider, 6%.
Nice. So I'm going to throw you for a loop. I'm actually not drinking a cider right now.
Oh, really?
I went out and got a lemonade instead.
Oh.
Because it is summer today. It is full summer. Like, it's only May right now, but it is 80 degrees outside and I am like drenching in sweat. And I'm like, that's you bust out the lemonade. When it gets hot, you get lemonade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get that open.
Actually, it's funny because I spent 9 days in Taipei, and so I'm actually dry for the first time in like a week and a half. You spend 9 days in 95% humidity with a low of about 82. I think the day I left, it finally cooled off to 74, but still 95% humidity. Which it sounds like I'm a native Oregonian, like I should be used to high humidity. It's only high humidity in the winter. During the summer, we're like 20%. And so heat and humidity do not mix well with me.
I'm the exact same because last summer was it like around August, the hottest time of the year. I spent a couple weeks over in Japan during 2 typhoons at that. So
yeah.
To say I got wet, yes. To say like the wet got me, yes.
Yeah. I like to tell people I have Kevin James syndrome. That is, what are you, jumping rope in the attic? No, I peeled an orange about an hour ago. I just sweat profusely, and I don't like it.
Well, when the humidity is that high, you don't even know if you're sweating. You literally just open the door, and the wet, like I said, the wet gets you.
Yeah,
that's just how it is. Like the wet just clings to your body for like the moisture in the air, and I know that is the case because, for instance, like I'm a big time photographer, right? And I toured Japan with another photographer buddy of mine that we worked together for a couple of decades now. And we basically take a camera out of our bag, just pop the lens cover off, and instant fog.
Yeah.
Like inside, outside, everywhere. And it was just such a pain.
Every time I walk out of a building, my glasses would fog up. Yeah, just...
Oh, speaking of glasses, by the way, like I'm kind of like in this weird spot right now. Like I only became a glasses user about a year ago because I wasn't always good to myself, right? And so it took me a while to adjust to them. I broke them yesterday.
Oh no!
And so I had a second pair that was just kind of like reading glasses, but they're more computer glasses, so they're a bit more tuned for that.
Yeah.
And but otherwise the frames are the same. So I took it down to the glasses shop today, the eye care center, had them swap the lenses from the broken one to these frames, just so I can see, right? But you know, like even though they're the same frames, the tension is just a little bit different, and like you feel it, you know it.
Your nose sits slightly different. It rubs on a slightly different spot of your ear. Yeah.
And that I only did that at 3 o'clock today, so I'm only 3 hours into having this setup.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, oh, this is so weird. And I was telling you before the show, like these headphones also, I opened these out of their package brand new an hour ago. So my head is just kind of like, what's going on right now?
Yeah. Having been a glasses wearer for 28 years-ish, yeah, I definitely get used to certain frames, even different styles of glasses and whatnot. Like I've got 3 or 4 pairs of glasses that I have around the house. I have one set that's slightly stronger, so if I'm going to be sitting in front of the computer all day, I can simply sit there and read all day. These are the ones you will almost always see me wearing. So I have an astigmatism in both eyes. I was naturally farsighted anyway. Also, when I was 17, I think, I caught the strep virus in my eyes, and it actually weakened the muscles of my eyes.
Oh, wow.
And so I already had like a slight disadvantage when it comes to like focus, but I could like force my eyes to focus and make it work. There are some days my muscles are so weak I cannot actually make my eyes focus anymore. And it permanently damaged the muscles that fine tune your vision, and so I wear them mainly out of necessity anymore. Just I don't have the ability to snap focus from one thing to the other and back. So people have asked if I can wear contacts. I hate things touching my eyes too, and so no.
Yeah, I was considering back and forth because when I did the eye exam and everything last year, they asked me if I wanted glasses or contacts. But like the main reason, honestly, I got them, again, like I said, I just did that trip to Japan last summer. I got these a week before that trip because going to Japan, I wanted to see Japan.
Yes.
And I'm like glasses are easier than contacts, and it's already going to be a pain, and I'm going to be in another country for the first time, and I'm not going to know anything that's going on. I don't need that extra little bit of burden of poking my eyeballs every morning and trying to figure out how that works.
Right.
So now next time I go for an eye exam, I might try it out. But at least, like I said, for then, I had basically 3 or 4 days between picking up the glasses and flying to Japan, and I'm like, yeah, that was probably the best decision.
Yeah. One of the worst things that I had happen to me was this was 2 years ago. I had a flight to, where was I at? I think it was San Jose. I flew down to San Jose for something. And I got back on like Thursday, and I left the following Sunday, so 3 days later, to go over to Nova Scotia and visit 45 Drives. And I lost my glasses on the plane from San Jose. They're just gone. And so they're my daily driver, like the ones I'm comfortable with, the ones that fit, everything else. And so I remember Friday morning, 9 a.m., driving down to the local glasses shop and going, I need something. I need them as quickly as possible. I hadn't had an eye exam in like 2 years or something like that, so I had to call my and I had I think I had moved since then as well. And so I had to call my previous optometrist and have them re-up my prescription without seeing me, so I could give the new place the prescription, a valid prescription, so they could make the glasses for me, so my insurance would cover it and everything else. And they got it done inside of 4 hours for me, and had me a new pair of glasses.
That's amazing.
And that's actually these ones, like, so.
Yeah, with my broken ones, something they didn't have on site, so they had to order them out. But they were able to. It took them about 5 minutes to swap the lenses over, at least to these frames. Mm-hmm. And so the original frame that I had, because they're different colors at least, even though they are the same frame.
Yeah. And
I like the other color a little bit better, so they did at least order me some new frames. That they said Monday, I think, is their estimate right now. So
nice.
Not too bad.
That's not too bad at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we do have some news to get to.
Wait, really? There's news?
There's news.
Things happened?
Yeah. We'll see if some of this spurs any conversation. Another RTX 5090 has melted down, this time with a foolproof connector, the two-tone colored ones.
Yep, the yellow one. I saw that.
Yep. Realtek has an affordable 10 gigabit Ethernet chip that could be coming to a motherboard near you. So finally, after a freaking decade, we might actually be getting affordable 10 gigabit networking integrated into motherboards. That's exciting. AMD, hot on the heels of NVIDIA shooting themselves in the foot, decides to proclaim publicly that 8 gigabytes of VRAM is more than enough for most gamers. And this is the bigger news, and I know you and I are both super excited about this. The latest version of SteamOS, SteamOS 3.7, is available as a generic installer, so long as you have AMD hardware. But now, you can install official SteamOS on other hardware.
I might have to try that one. I'm actually on an all AMD laptop right now.
Ooh.
I wonder if that'll work.
Could be interesting. In fact, we'll start with SteamOS, because that sounds fun.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm a big Linux gamer. You're a gamer who also favors Linux. And actually, if we want to get into it, BSD is kind of your forte.
No, I was going to say, this laptop, right now, it's running Windows because I have 2 NVMe drives in it, but the other NVMe drive is FreeBSD, and I do have Steam installed and working on that.
Nice.
But no, like, I love this idea. I saw a report. I didn't really dive into the details yesterday, but one of the hardware channels somewhere took one of the handhelds, like, was it the Logitech? I don't know which handheld it was, but they compared its stock Windows install to the SteamOS install, and just the performance was through the roof.
Yeah.
Like, Windows was holding these things back, not just the crappy UX UI for handhelds. It also turns out just performance in general. The SteamOS is just blowing away the performance, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because the better performance you get, you can also clock it down more and get better battery life.
Yes.
So, I mean, you get all those extra options there, too, which is really neat, which SteamOS is specifically designed to do, too. It has all those tuning options built in and really easy to get to.
Yep.
So I'm excited.
Yeah. So this has obviously been a very long time coming. I'm trying to think of when I did my last SteamOS retrospective. Let me look that up real quick. That was in... when was this posted? Come on.
It's been 84 years.
Something like that.
Sorry, saying...
it was almost 200 videos ago.
Oh, God. But going back to an earlier topic, are we going to have SteamOS at PDX LAN?
Ooh. You know, there were 2 years in a row, so 4 LAN, maybe 3 LANs in a row, that I brought Pop! OS to PDX LAN.
I remember that.
And played without a problem. Like, came with a couple of games installed, but it was like, hey, what does everyone want to play? So I installed it there and ran it there and had a wonderful time. There was not a single game that I ran into that I even had to second guess or tweak or whatever else. It just worked. I played Borderlands 3. I played Rocket League. I played Risk of Rain 2. I did a little GTA 5. Trying to think of other games that I played during that time. But yeah, showed up to the LAN, installed games live right there on Linux, and they just kind of worked.
Yeah, Proton, because like on the FreeBSD side, like we're using the exact same software, right? It's still Proton from Valve, and so I follow that a little bit more closely because we have to do a few more tweaks to get it to work since Valve doesn't support it themselves. But yeah, following closely, like just I'm amazed how well it works. There's been a good number of games, and not even Steam games, right? Using Proton on FreeBSD, I take my GOG installers and they just work.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I'm very adamant about. Like, I love having the no DRM. I can just double-click the Windows EXE. It brings up the GOG installer and installs the game. Then I double-click the icon on the desktop for the game, and I'm gaming. And you know, it's phenomenal to think about that. Now I'm doing that, like I said, as a FreeBSD user, using the Linux utilities, and I know it's even better supported on Linux than it is on BSD right now. So,
yeah.
Like it's phenomenal where we're at with the compatibility layers and how performant they are.
Yeah, I mean that's where I own a number of my AAA games is over on GOG. If I have the choice to buy them on GOG or on Steam, I buy them on GOG.
100%, always.
That's where I have Baldur's Gate 3. That's where I have Cyberpunk. That's where I have...
Of course, that's where you get Cyberpunk. It's their game.
It's CD Projekt Red, right? But that's also where I have... Kingdom Come Deliverance is over on GOG. And those are the installers I use, including on my handheld, which is running Bazite right now.
Yeah. So speaking of Cyberpunk real quick, I think it was yesterday or today, CDPR had their investor call, and they specifically called out Cyberpunk 2. They said it's a working title, so it's not... They're not confirming what it's going to be called. And they also just said, how do they phrase it? Like coming soon or like...
It is in pre-production, I believe is what they said.
They said pre-production, but they also they gave a vague timeline of when it's done, basically. But they had like a nice political way of saying when it's done. Yeah. So that way the investors won't rush them on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I think that's really cool to hear that there's more Cyberpunk. They didn't even confirm if it's the same type of game or anything like that. They just said it's in the Cyberpunk universe.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. You know, that Cyberpunk 2077, I think is one of those games that you either love or you hate.
Yeah, totally.
It obviously had a terrible launch. It's kind of not quite to the level of No Man's Sky, but close, because the hype train was absolutely moving for it. And if you had top spec hardware, if you had a 2080 Ti when it launched, you could play it, and it played pretty well. There was some jank to it, but it played. If you had a 2070 or a Pascal-based card or anything else, good luck.
Forget it.
Yeah. It was not good. Not only that, but it launched on the previous generation console. It launched on PS4, for crying out loud. Where it ran at about 12 frames per second with all the NPCs doing T-poses. And that was the game. That's how it launched. It was so bad on the consoles, they ended up pulling it from sale. So it's no longer available for those.
Yeah. But the one thing I will give them credit for is that they didn't let that be the end of the game. Like, if it's never about how bad something is, it's about how like a company, comes back and handles the situation, right? And CDPR has done so much work on that game to improve the stability issues, improve the performance issues. Granted, we have new hardware now, and that they've kept up with the new hardware, supporting all the new frame gen and all the VRR stuff that we have now, and all the new ray tracing stuff. Like as new tech comes out, they're just continually one-to-one keeping up with hardware the day it comes out, basically, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, my launch video, or my launch day review for the RTX 5090 focused heavily on Indiana Jones and Cyberpunk 2077 because of their day one support for DLSS 4 and multi-frame gen and all of those other, things that we look at. Not only that, but Cyberpunk got path tracing as part of its one of its more recent updates. And so we were able to put all of that together and kind of showcase next gen features. The direction that game development and game visuals are heading. Love it or not, ray tracing is the way forward. Path tracing is the way forward. If you want more realistic looking games, you need more realistic reactions to lighting. And we said the same thing about volumetric shadows in 2002. Who needs volumetric shadows? The fake little circles on the ground are plenty.
No, I'm old enough that I remember the hardware TNL controversy, because hardware TNL was slower than software.
Yes. Yeah.
But here we are 20-something, 30-something years later, and that's not even mentioned in the spec sheet, because it's just, there's a base level of hardware everything has. Your iGPU has had that for 20 years at this point.
Right.
Yeah. And we're going to get there. Like, we're not that far off from basic ray tracing being on every iGPU. We're actually not that far from that.
We're probably one generation away from RT cores landing on every iGPU. And that sounds odd, but no, that's actually where we are at.
With XE2, and then whatever comes after XE2, the third generation XE, and with the new AMD stuff coming out, the new APUs from AMD, there's no reason not to have it.
Right. I mean, there was a time when, 10 years ago, enabling anti-aliasing in games did the exact same thing to performance as ray tracing did, because it was a very hardware-intensive calculation that had to happen on every frame, on every vertices that you possibly rendered. And then they figured out algorithms and bespoke hardware within your individual rendering cores to do that calculation much, much more efficiently. And so now you have NVIDIA's implementation of anti-aliasing, you have AMD's, you have drawing a blank on the actual names of the anti-aliasing techs now, but it's
something SAA, like there's TSAA,
MSAA,
like throw a letter in there, SAA, and that's anti-aliasing.
Exactly. But it is basically free visual improvements now for less than 1% of your overall performance, but that tech had to start somewhere. And that's the life cycle that we're in with ray tracing right now, where ray tracing is going to become as ubiquitous as anti-aliasing and even anisotropic filtering is today. But we have to develop the tech so we know what direction it has to go. And that's not a bad thing.
And the thing is, like, so ray tracing isn't even remotely new either. Like, ray tracing, most ray tracing tech predates standard rasterizing tech, but it wasn't real time.
Yeah.
I mean, like, my whole dream is I want to watch Toy Story in real time rendered on a single GPU.
Yeah. That would be so much fun.
If Pixar released like a data set and a rendering engine for real-time watching their old movies, I would totally live that up just for the nostalgia kick and to say, like, I have a badass system that competes with their old entire rendering farm.
Yeah.
Well, especially because it was, like an hour to a day to a couple days to render a single frame back then?
Yeah.
And we are at the point now where I do believe the 5090 is fairly close to one-to-one compute with the old tech, and that's not accounting for modern optimizations and modern memory bandwidth and the fact you're not distributing it across an entire cluster and then bringing all that data back.
Right.
So, like, in theory, we might actually be at the point where we can actually ray trace render using the original algorithm of Toy Story in real time.
Yeah, which is kind of nuts to think about. Simply because of number one, how well Toy Story animation and visually stands up to even modern animation techniques. Like, it shows some age, and so does like Shrek and you know, some of the late 90s, you know, DreamWorks and Pixar kind of stuff. But that animation style or that visual quality is why we're focusing so hard on ray tracing right now. It's why those look so good, is because that's how they implemented it. So
yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of the Pixar tech specifically is actually open source, like OpenSubdiv. They open sourced a bunch of that, I think, like 4 or 5 years ago, and they've been like adding more and more to it and bringing more of their old code back. So we might actually have enough tech in the public space now to render those if we just had the assets to go along with it.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that would be, man. There are some people I might be able to call in Silicon Valley.
No, what actually brings up a real interesting thought is, could we have a game using that code and that tech? Can we just have a Toy Story game? Like, think about how they have RC, right?
Yeah.
Having a little RC racing game that uses the Toy Story rendering engine.
Yeah.
That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. It was really fun. So back in March, myself and a couple of my friends, we got a tour of Oxide Computing.
Oh God, you're making me jealous already.
We got into Oxide Computing. We spent 2 hours with the CEO, gushing over the tech that they have there. And saw a couple full server racks, like fully assembled, how they test, and talk to them about their process of development and everything else. Oxide Computing is across the street from Pixar's animation headquarters.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah, and for the viewers that don't know, like, look up Oxide, because like we have this idea of what a computer is, where it has a preloader, then it goes into the BIOS does a bunch of stuff, then it goes to the loader on the disk, and then it goes from there into the operating system. And like there's this whole chain of events. And Oxide said, what if we got rid of all of that and we have a very simplified boot process and a microkernel, and like they basically redid the entire computer from scratch.
Right.
Hardware, software, the boot process, the OS, the kernel, everything, all brand new concepts.
Yep.
And it's more than we can talk about in a 5-hour video, so I'm not even going to get into it, but it's definitely worth watching.
If anyone watched my Computex like wrap-up video, I talked about I got a briefing from Western Digital on their new fabric enclosure for NVMe. So it's Ethernet, bunch of flash, NVMe direct attached storage over Ethernet fabric, essentially. And same kind of concept. Like, why are we loading up a NAS with 2 x86 processors and then subdividing the PCI Express handler out to connect to each drive, loading an OS, loading a kernel, loading drivers, loading all this stuff simply to reshare the data from the flash onto the network? Shouldn't we just design an ASIC that connects the NVMe drive and exposes it to the network? Like what if we just did that? And so that's like Oxide Computing on like the grand scale of, what if we just expose the resources of the PC components that you need directly to Ethernet?
And like that, the WD thing is like very interesting to me, especially because like my day job, right? I'm a full-time database admin, and everything is all about storage. Like my whole life centers around storage and different storage technologies. And I heard about this. I think it might have actually been from you. And I'm just like, what the hell is this? Like, can I have like 100 of these right now, please?
Right.
Like, not even for my day job, just for my home lab. This needs to be my home lab now. Because like storage is always like the one of the biggest things that we fight with, like in the commercial space and the home lab space everywhere. And I'm like, if the storage is just on the network always, nothing in between, it would simplify so much of what I do. Yeah, so much.
Yep. So that was a really cool briefing. That's literally all I can say of it too. Is they have an enclosure that holds 24 NVMe drives that also has 12 100 gigabit Ethernet ports.
Yeah.
And you can pull essentially line rate read and writes. That's 150 gigabyte per second to that server Oh, and
server.
To that enclosure.
We need a new term for it.
Oh, and you can stack them basically as far as you want to go. And it scales the scale on it, so 45% is linear, right? If you have a graph from 0 to 100 and then you scale, it's a 45-degree angle.
Yep.
The explanation that I got was it's not 45 degrees, but it's like 43 for however many you want to put in a stack.
And honestly, a lot of that scalability is going to be your switching fabric anyway.
Yeah.
Like once you get 100 gig and higher, like there's other things in the stack that start getting in the way.
Yes.
So like at that point, like I want to get to the point which is basically that where I forget storage exists.
Yeah. Yep. So that was exciting. I'm hoping to make more content around that. I have some wheels in motion with some things where I might actually get to be hands-on with it. Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yes. But yeah, SteamOS coming to a handheld near you.
So what you're saying is I'm going to drop SteamOS on like a handheld, but somehow shove a 100 gig NIC into it and tie it into this thing for my Steam library.
Yes, absolutely. Why not? That sounds awesome.
I mean, to be fair with my current Steam Deck, I do actually run it with a dock, with Ethernet and everything like that. So it does have gigabit now, like 1 gigabit, not a multi 100 gigabits, but
what?
It has one gigabits.
Not everyone has 100 gig to their desktops. I've got 2 links in here.
Yeah, shut up.
I've got a 4-port 100 gig switch under my desk over there.
So I keep pricing that out because that's the MikroTik switch.
Yes.
And just this week, I noticed they had one that's something like 16-port or 20-port 100 gig.
Yes.
They just came out with a much larger one because 4-port to me, like it's nice in concept, especially like if you have like a bunch of 25s and a couple of 100s, since you can break out those ports. But I was like, I might need a bit more for this one deployment I want to do for not quite home lab, let's say building lab.
Home lab plus.
Building lab, where it's multiple people in an apartment complex all kind of linking and sharing resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was wondering, like, 4 ports, that I don't have an easy way to distribute that the way I want to, but having 16 ports or 12, 16, 20, somewhere in that range, that starts getting real interesting to me.
Yeah. So I've got 2 of their 4-port switches. Out in my server rack, I have 100 gig to my main NAS and my backup NAS. And then I've got a 100 gig out to a fiber line that runs along the side of my building and then terminates over here. That terminates to 1 port in here. I have... that 100 gig is also technically my top of rack switch as well, because then I have a 4-port 25 breakout with 1 port that goes to my firewall, and then 1 port that goes to my 10 gig, and then 1 port that goes to my 1 gig switch. And then 1 that's just hanging free still. So I have an extra 25 gig that I could terminate somewhere on that unit. Here in my office, I have a similar setup where I've got 1 port that's incoming 100 gig from the rack. I have 1 port that goes out to my desktop, another port that comes out to my streaming rig, and then I also have a 4x25 out of that. One of those is terminated into my 10 gig switch here. So, and then the 10 gig has a 10 gig link that comes over to this desk, which has a 10 gig to 2.5 switch. And so my 2.5 wired is over here. My 100 gig wired is over there.
Yeah, like I run a similar setup here at home because I have my server room, and then basically the way I describe them is I have my north core and my south core, right? They're on opposite ends of the unit. And but I don't have quite as much bandwidth as you right now. But they're it's dual 25s linking the two together. So I have a 50 gigabit between the 2 switches. And then otherwise they each have, I believe it's 12 10 gig ports. And those branch out to all sorts of different things. So like my workstation and whatnot. I have a 10 gig link going to my arcade cabinet just off of camera here, which is hilarious. And that's what I'm plugged into that. My laptop that we're streaming with is plugged into that with a 1 gig link.
Nice.
But yeah, that has a 10 gig link up. I've mentioned to you before that I'm working on a dial-up ISP here at home right now.
Uh-huh.
So dial-up 56K, actually 33.6 because I don't even have the modems for 56K yet. That's the weird, complicated thing. So my 33.6 connections have a 10 gig uplink to the core. Because that's what that's what I call it. So I have the core switches and the leaf switches, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, all of my leaf switches all connect to the core using 10 gigs, and then they branch out to whatever they need to connect to from there.
Yeah. Speaking of networking, there could be a 10 gig adapter coming to a motherboard near you. And I know you and I are also both equally jazzed about this.
What was my very first comment to you when I saw this? Or it might have been to somebody else.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know you said you were excited to me, but I don't recall.
Yeah, my very first thought when I saw this, like, okay, it says $10 up there, so that's... I'm going to say it's probably not retail $10. That's probably the cost of just the chip to OEMs. Right. That's probably my assumption right now. But the Mac Mini and the Mac Pro, or the Mac Studio rather, has a 1 gig NIC in it.
Yeah.
$100, you get a 10 gig NIC.
Yep.
That's the only difference in the hardware. It's a $100 upsell to get you a 10 gig NIC.
Yep.
And that is smaller than any ITX board out there. Find an ITX board, except for a few specific server boards that have 10 gig on them.
Yeah, there's not many.
Apple nailed it perfectly. Like, $100 is still a hell of a lot more than that chip costs. Like, obviously, like we're seeing here that Realtek has made it a $10 offering. So retail 30, 40, $50 is probably what's going to be on the upsell. Maybe even $100 on the Apple scale. And I don't care. Because like I'm using a Quantia Thunderbolt NICs right now, and they're like
250, I think.
Yeah. And you have to have Thunderbolt to begin with.
Yeah.
And right now, AM4, there's only one motherboard, AM4, that has Thunderbolt. There are 0 AM5 motherboards that are ITX.
Yep.
So in the ITX space, small form factor, and plus that gives you another brick on your desk that's ugly and annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have 2 of those right now, and yeah, I spent the money on them, and I hate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as I saw this NIC, I'm like, thank you, please.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, Minis Forum announced a ARM workstation that has a dual 10 gig on it, and my question is this the 10 gig chip they're using?
No, it is not.
Okay.
The R1, as far as I understand, is using the same X710 Intel chips as the MSA2 and the MSO1.
Okay.
So the Intel and the AMD mini workstations that they have. In fact, I'm touching the MSA2 right now.
I'm touching an MSO1 right now.
There you go. Yeah, my MSO1's on the other side of the room, but no, the MSA2 is right. I've been benchmarking that most of the day today, and the MSA2 is going to blow your mind. I know you're an MSO1 fan.
Well, so I bought the MSO1. Like, I actually brought it over here to talk about it a little bit. Because everyone always throws me crap for this until they actually understand why I have it and what I'm using it for.
Mm-hmm.
The MSO1 I got specifically to be my mother's workstation. So she's on an HP Z420 right now.
Okay.
And so
X99.
That's
Woo!
8-core, 16-thread Xeon,
That's
64 gigs of quad-channel DDR3. So it's actually faster than most DDR4 platforms because of the quad channel.
Oh, yeah.
And she's running 10 gig NIC on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I specifically that last point, like the 64 gigs and the 10 gig NIC, people are like, throw their head because I say it's my mother's computer, right? And admittedly, yes, the number one thing she actually does is watch cat videos on YouTube. There are live streams of cats from a cat rescue up in Vancouver, BC called Tiny Kittens, and they have multiple YouTube channels, and so she has multiple screens watching all of them. No joke.
That's great.
Hilarious, right? But she does photography too for the family. So you think like RAW files are a certain size. and then you bring them into Photoshop. And on average, when you bring a RAW into Photoshop and you save the PSD, it's a gig-ish on average, right, with the work that we do.
Yeah.
And I don't trust any single piece of storage. So I have her set up with a storage server in one of her closets.
Mm-hmm.
So she has 8 12 terabyte drives in a RAID Z2 array right now. And that's being fed by 2 or 4 10 gig NICs. I don't remember what the current config is because hardware gets swapped out over time, right?
Yeah.
But whatever I replace her with needs to have 10 gig NICs. And, the Z420 is, like it's a tower. It's a workstation. And I wanted something better for her desk. So I was like, oh, well, this destroys it in performance.
Yeah.
Look how tiny it is.
Yeah.
And dual 10 gig NICs. Dual 10 gig NICs.
Yeah.
The main thing that came after that is, okay, what hardware do I put in it? So I have, again, 64 gigs of DDR5 this time.
Mm-hmm.
And then how about an RTX 3050?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Heck yes.
Perfect little card for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm, like you're saying, benchmarking. I'm working on benchmarking this right here with a bunch of other mini PCs, because I actually have 3 different mini PC projects I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's just one of the configurations. One of the other configs I'm testing is this oddity right here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I'm just going to leave this one to chat for the time being. I know it's going to be hard to see, but on the back of the card, there's a USB-C port. It's kind of been a gauntlet that I've thrown down to see if anybody can figure this out. And actually, one person has, after giving like 20 hints on Bluesky.
Yeah.
There's been one person to accurately figure it out, finally.
Yeah.
But that's only after we spent all the time testing and debugging and plugging in a bunch of different things and figuring out and then giving people hints. Is the only reason somebody has figured it out is because we gave them the hints with the answer.
Right. So that card is a really funny story, actually. So we talk about my Discord server a lot, and there are a number of like-minded individuals over on my
Join the
my
Patreon.
Server. Join the Patreon. Link in the description.
Join the Patreon.
Yeah. There are a number of like-minded individuals on my Discord server.
Oh, yeah.
There's obviously a bunch of home lab people. There's obviously a bunch of gaming handheld people. There's obviously a bunch of just gaming in general. But I've also collected like a fair number of small form factor enthusiasts over there, of which I am also one. So we keep an eye out.
MSA2, small form factor, what?
Right. So we keep an eye out for random cards and things that crop up. Any small form factor, half height, half length card. If it has video output, it's made it to the server. Like someone has it or has seen it or has linked it or something. This is one that no one shared individually until there was about an hour to go on the bid on eBay. At which point we realized 4 people on my Discord server were bidding against each other.
To be fair, when the auction first went live, the very first day, we did have a discussion about it, and that's why I was bidding on it.
Yeah.
So there was like discussion, dead air for a week, and then the final hour.
Right. Then the final hour in which we actually had to have a conversation. Would you stop so Vince can get it? But we raised the price like $120 on this card.
No, actually, at the end, it was only raised 50.
Oh, was it only 50? Okay.
It was only 50, yep.
Okay.
So a certain Cosworth owes me a pizza and a beer now.
Yes. But what this card is a half height, half length NVIDIA...
Single slot.
Single slot.
Yeah. That's important too.
Yes. This is an NVIDIA. Is it an A2000 or a 2008? A2000. Okay.
It's an A2000 8 gig variant.
Yeah, A2000M 8 gig variant.
Because for the normal desktop ones, there's a 6 and a 12, not an 8.
Right. So, and I've got the 6, but it's in the double height standard, small form factor desktop card. This is actually a card that's been referenced by a number of manufacturers. I know Zima and Minis Forum both have mentioned, hey, do you want a workstation card to slam into your small form factor box? There's the A2000M 8GB. And all of us collectively went, what the hell is that card? What are they talking about? NVIDIA doesn't release that card. Like that's like an
Mhm.
it's a mobile card. NVIDIA doesn't put it on a PCI bracket. Like they don't do that. And one showed up on eBay. And so anyone who's ever thought of that card or knows of that it exists went, I have to have that. And 4 of them were in my server.
So, Jeff, I haven't told anybody yet the other half of the story with me bidding on it, though. So that day, I met up with friends for brunch, and it was one of my friends' birthday, the day before they did the Seattle Aquarium. And then this day, they wanted to do the Tacoma Zoo and Aquarium. So we road trip down there, did that, came back, and they were staying at a friend's house that's luckily enough only like 3 or 4 blocks from me. So I'm like, all right, cool, you're parking the car. I'm gonna walk home, grab my MacBook, and come back to you guys. That way I can like, focus on this auction.
Yeah.
But let's just say it was a birthday party.
Yeah.
Very, very strong cocktails. Sometime, Jeff, I'll get you a photo of this guy's collection, the house that we are at. A few hundred bottles. And we're talking, you know how tall my ceilings are. His place is similar to mine.
Yeah.
Floor to ceiling, wall to wall. And decorated immaculately for all of us, right? So I was many, many drinks in when I started bidding.
Yeah.
And everybody knew what I was doing. And let's just say there was a very, very loud screaming party once I won that auction.
Nice.
It was an amazing night for all of us.
Yep.
Except for the people bidding it up for me.
Yep. Let's see. There's also so we have the small form factor club. Of that, we also have a minis forum owners club, and so there's a number of people with MSO1s. There's quite a few people with the BD790i, the 7945HX ITX board with the mobile 16 core Zen 4 variant. There's
Dan case owner.
Dan case owners. Yeah, we've got a couple Dan case owners. There's a good number of us. There's a number of Terra owners of the Terra ITX from Fractal Design.
I will just say though, out of all, because I own and have owned a lot of different ITX rigs and whatnot, and the minis forum rigs are smaller. They are proprietary, but they are smaller. And the one thing they got right that every other freaking ITX gets wrong is that.
Yes.
Like the easiest, absolute easiest.
Toolless, basically everything.
Not just toolless, but like how quick and easy that is, because it's literally just, it's open.
Yeah.
And then it's closed.
Yep.
Like I don't even have to think about it. Granted, the way they did the ports, I'm going to blast them in my review.
The RJ45s.
Well, not just that, also the USBs are upside down.
USBs are upside down, yeah. And the RJ5s have the tab closest to the bottom, and so you have to use something to lift them. Yeah.
They have that giant lip there that's, oh God, that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, you can't get your fingers in there. Yep.
So that, the other thing I will also say is specific, which you may not have experienced yet. I'll hold up these 2 cards, align them, and notice the backs of them, right?
Uh-huh.
There, I can fit my finger there, and there's still a little bit of extra room there.
Yeah.
This card, or the A2000, is about 1.5 centimeters longer than the 3050.
Uh-huh.
That makes it actually hard to get in and out of that case.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Like we're down to counting millimeters, just like I do with my Dan case, trying to get things in and out of that case.
Well, you've seen my 4000 Ada crammed into the MSO1. Same situation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've actually got like marks on my fingers that are fairly permanent from getting that thing in and out of there.
I'll say like, I have a nice scrape on my thumb right now from working on rigs.
All right, well, I'm going to grab my second beverage here real quick.
Cool. I'm just going to sit here and keep playing with the GPUs. You all like small GPUs, right? So basically what I'm working on is benchmarking a bunch of tiny machines, not just this, but also workstations for myself and for other projects I'm working on. So you saw the 2 there. I'm also comparing them to a 1050. And because I wanted to go as cheap as possible, a K620 and a P620 which is hilarious because they're actually going into what does HP call their stuff? Something. It's also a 620, but I forget the letter.
Oh yeah,
the
the V620.
No, it's not a V. But you know what I'm talking about? They're little
thin clients.
Thin clients. Thin clients. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a T620.
T620. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a P620 into a T620 and the K620 into a T620, and that's one of the series of benchmarks that I'm doing. But I also have the 630 and the 740. And one of those is actually on one of my 4 offices, because apparently I somehow ended up with 4 offices in my condo. It is my soldering workstation.
Nice.
So my soldering workstation, the biggest issue I've had is actually this toy right here, my MacBook. Because I didn't have a computer over there, right?
Yeah.
So I would take my MacBook and set it on the desk, but with a soldering iron and everything else going on, like I don't trust it being over there, and I don't have a good place to set it. So I was thinking, like, well, I'm benchmarking all these mini PCs. Why don't I just keep one and use it? Weird thought, right?
Yeah.
I put a K620 into it. It's the I don't know if I have the 630 or the 740 over there right now, but it's permanently running FreeBSD, no dual booting. And then I put some plywood onto the wall, bolted into the studs, and then I bolted a monitor arm to that plywood. That way it had a nice secure place rather than just bolting it into sheetrock. And so I have a 27-inch 1440p. It's only 75 hertz, but the whole point is that I just need to look at schematics when I'm doing soldering, right?
Right.
So like I have a screen for that now, but it's also raised above the desk. I also bought myself a nice 4-port oscilloscope, and I'm like, this thing's too nice. I don't want to get it near other things too. So that also had a VESA mount on it. So I just got a dual VESA mount arm. So one arm is the monitor, the bottom arm is the oscilloscope.
Nice.
So they're both raised above the desk. And then you actually saw it. I did it live on the after party. Join the Patreon, where I bolted my old keyboard drawer back to that desk, because that used to be my main desk before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I bolted the keyboard drawer on, so that way the keyboard would be out of the way. So the top main desk is just the soldering workstation now, and nothing else.
Nice.
So yeah, all the visual stuff is above, all the computer interactive stuff, and the computer itself is sitting below the desk, and then the tabletop is just the soldering, the microscope, and that kind of stuff now. So I just have like a nice, good, large surface for working on PCBs.
Nice. Yeah, no, right around 10 years ago or so, I had done, no, it was more than that. I had built myself a similar station out in my garage, where I needed a PC for looking at schematics or whatever else, or just a web page that I needed to look at. And so I actually had a Raspberry Pi Model B, the original Raspberry Pi, as my web browsing machine. Had it up to like a little 19-inch monitor, and then had my soldering station directly below with a nice flat workstation. And you actually saw that setup in one of my earliest videos on Craft Computing.
Time to go watch the back catalog.
Yeah, like video number 8, I want to say it was. It was my average Steam gaming PC. That was shot in my garage. It was the only video that was ever shot in that garage. And the day that I shot it was like August 20th. And I want to say it was 102 degrees in my garage.
Ooh.
And then I would, and I had the garage door closed, and I would shoot for about 5 minutes. And then I'd turn everything off, and I'd open the bottom of the garage door, and I'd let what 95-degree cool air was into the garage. And then I'd close everything up again and turn the camera back on. That was awful.
Yeah, so I cheated a little bit today because it's hot today. Like my phone says it's about 74 outside, but the sun is beating on me right now. Like you can see it. Like, and that's with the blinds closed, by the way. There's still that much light getting through. So I kind of cheated a bit. My upper windows, right before this, I put a fan into it, sucking the hot air out. So, and to force a breeze through here. And also it's far enough away that I don't get the noise from it where I'm sitting right here, luckily. But no, I kind of cheated, and I'm like kind of faking doing the same, but I don't have a 5-minute window. Apparently I'm stuck here with you for at least 2 hours. Speaking of which, since you just grabbed number 2, I'm going to go grab number 2 real quick.
Sweet. So yeah, it was the T620 Plus is the machine he was talking about, Coffee and Cynicism. Janiv says MSR1 hype. Yes, and in fact, as soon as Vince sits back down, I think we'll dive into a little MSR1 talk. We talked about it briefly on Talking Heads last week, but I am actually a little anxious to hear what Vince has to say about it. He deals with ARM a lot more than I do. Novella chimes in and says beer number 2 is Trinity Brewhouse Belgian Strawberry 2024. Ooh, we're going hardcore tonight. 12% is their official number. Excuse me. So
admittedly,
Vince,
I've not been reading chat like I normally do. I see that Skull just sent me a message. Sure, Skull, let's just say yes. I will test out more things. I love this idea.
So Vince, MSR1 hype. We talked about it briefly on Talking Heads last week, but what do you think of Minis Forum's ARM workstation?
Real quick, Seattle cider. Got to do the local boys.
There you go.
Honey crisps. This is only 5.5, so I'm a little bit lighter. But yeah, I went to the cider like you called me out for initially.
That's right. I've got another 2 towns. This is the Polar Party, the Winter Limited Cider, 6.9%.
So about ARM workstations, I have one already. I've had one for years, actually, surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned earlier about ITX boards and 10 gig networking, and this is something that's kind of annoyed me a little bit. So I have the Solid Run Honeycomb. They have 2 variants of it. One of them has what is it, like dual or quad 10 gig networking, and then the other one has that plus 40 gig. 40 gig on
40 gig integrated.
Yes, on ITX.
Yeah.
The problem is that they've been fighting with the Linux community to upstream the drivers, and I've begged them to work with the FreeBSD community, and they keep ignoring me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we will upstream your drivers into FreeBSD and get this thing working awesome. And they pretty much ignore me while they're still continuing to fight with the Linux community to get them mainlined into the Linux kernel. Mm-hmm. And it just frustrates me to no end. So right now, I have this amazing workstation with 10 gig networking that I can't use. And so I bounce between 2 different operating systems on it. I have ESXi ARM Fling, and Fling is just their VMware's name for their test development, not official product type stuff, right? And then FreeBSD, and I can run FreeBSD either as the host OS or as a VM. And when I do it as a VM, I'm actually passing the physical drives into the VM, so it's still the same install, right? Which is really cool.
Yeah.
The problem is that when I got that, I did some benchmarking on it. Not anything too fancy. I was just doing FreeBSD kernel compiling, kind of like most people do Linux kernel compiling as a quick CPU benchmark, right?
Yeah.
Or a mixed workload between single and multi-thread. It goes back and forth, right?
Yeah. Ask Yearling how often he recompiles the kernel.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm totally in the same boat. It's just I'm always doing FreeBSD, right?
Yeah.
I have a MacBook M1 Air sitting right here. That's what I have chat on right now. Mm-hmm. The M1 Air single and multi-threaded outperforms my ARM workstation.
Yeah.
The ARM workstation is 16 cores. That's not like big cores, little cores. That's straight 16 big cores, right?
Yeah.
And the M1 Air is 4 big, 4 small.
Yeah.
And those 8 cores outperform significantly the 16 in that workstation.
Yes.
So, yeah, it exists. It's there. And I've been disappointed with it for a number of reasons ever since day one. Mm-hmm. So, Minis Forum coming out with something. First off, they're not using cheap, crappy cores.
No.
This looks like it's a beast of a workstation. Again, with the MSO1, the A1, the A2, mm-hmm. They've nailed taking low power spec chips and making phenomenal rigs out of them.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked for this. I'm probably at some point going to pick one up for myself.
Yeah.
It's probably going to replace my current ARM workstation as my primary ARM development platform. Because that's honestly, I'm not an Apple user traditionally, right? I'm one of those people that hated Apple. I never wanted to touch it or anything like that. I bought the M1 Air just to do FreeBSD in a VM doing development work, because I do kernel development, I do user LAN development, I do third-party ports. Again, being a DBA, I make sure that MySQL and MariaDB work on FreeBSD, right?
Right.
And I do that across multiple CPUs. But it's, again, like I've had to run a VM on the M1 Air, or I've had to do stuff with this slower box that's a big workstation.
Yeah.
So with Minis Forum coming out saying, hey, we're gonna give you something nice, like I don't even have to think about it based on how good they've been with their other hardware. Like I'm really, really freaking stoked for this.
Yeah. It's a 12-core CIX, 2.6 gigahertz. So maybe not the fastest single core, but it should be very, very solid multi-core performance. 64 gig LPDDR5. So it's going to have some memory bandwidth behind it as well.
Oh yeah.
Dual 10 gig on an Intel X710 network card. Like they're not cheaping out on any aspect of it. And exactly as you said, like they're calling these workstations for a very good reason. These are not mini PCs. These are not throwaway hardware or whatever cheap thing that can compile onto a 4-inch square. These are
totally
genuinely good hardware with good expandability. And simply based on what I've seen out of the MSO1, the MSA1, the MSA2, I'm benchmarking the MSA2 right now, and holy crap, am I thoroughly blown away by this thing.
So one thing, like, because I didn't know this, and you brought it up on the stream, the fact that they're using the Intel 710 for their NICs, and things like that are actually really important to note if you're in open source at all, right? Like if you're dealing even with Linux, because the drivers themselves, because PCI Express is a common known interface, and that we have the code for that already in the Linux kernel, the BSD kernel, things like that. All you need is that next stage of interacting with the device itself. And the x86 driver and the ARM driver are virtually one-to-one identical. Like there's been a lot of drivers when working with these ARM workstations on FreeBSD that all I had to do was just say, turn the driver on. That's it. Because like prior to me doing some of this work, ARM was thought to be, Raspberry Pis or little SBCs, and they didn't have PCI Express. They didn't have all this other mumbo jumbo with them, or even like certain USB drivers, even just certain USB 3 stuff. I had to go get turned on in the generic FreeBSD kernel, right? And then once it's turned on, the whole world opens, and we start treating it like a normal desktop. And so that holds true, like I said, even for Linux. Like that means day one we will have great networking support. Unlike I said with my current workstation, I've had that thing for years. I still don't have drivers for it. But this new what is it? The R? They're calling R1?
Yeah, the R1 is what they're
the
calling
R1?
it.
Yeah, day one, Linux, FreeBSD, and probably even like Windows ARM is going to be amazing, literally day one. Because they're using common, known, good, well thought out hardware. And honestly, that's my only gripe right now about this. We talked about it earlier. The $10.
The Realtek.
The Realtek NIC is that Realtek is good about pushing out drivers, but when are they going to do that, and when is it going to hit all the different platforms? So that's really the only question in my mind with the cheap Realtek chip is like, when are we going to get drivers? And historically, their drivers have been buggy. Like they've had some driver issues, and so I'm hoping that it's, they're working on that. But Intel historically has had some of the absolute best rock solid stable network drivers across any vendor.
And Intel, believe it or not, Intel actually hugely supports open source communities and environments, and often like day one Linux drivers as well for integrations. Zach chiming in with a $500 super chat.
Oh, that was 500. I saw that he super chatted. I didn't see the number. Holy crap.
That's not a 5 or a 50. That's a 500. In honor of Vince's first show, does he get a t-shirt that says, I joined Talking Heads and all I got was this lousy t-shirt? I think we're going to need to make that happen. So, yes. So next PDX LAN, I think we'll make sure Vince gets a t-shirt.
Well, if you remember, several PDX LANs ago, I think a certain somebody organized a Craft Computing Star Trek themed t-shirt day for all of us.
Yes, they did.
And provided all the shirts for us.
Yes.
So to be fair, I did kind of get a shirt.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Yep.
You also gave me a Craft Computing shirt personally as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There was a brief moment in time where I sold T-shirts through my merch store. That was my not the merch that I built in house, but it was a hosted.
The before times.
Yeah, the before times, right?
Yeah.
and I had some Star Trek inspired shirts. Just I had red, blue, and yellow, so I had the three divisions. Yep. And they had black collars and sleeve cuffs. And then just my logo where the comm badge would be. Yep. And those were fun. And Zach was kind enough to buy all the attendees in our group buy, plus Vince and a couple others. Red Star Trek shirts.
Specifically the red shirts.
Specifically reds, and then I had a yellow. And so we had Jeff and his band of red shirts.
And so in the Discord, didn't we actually have the away team called like the Red Shirts or something just for that PDX LAN?
It might have been, yeah.
I think right. we had some sort of reference to that about how we were like all the away team that was gonna like end up dead at the end of the day. Because those shirts were themed after the original series, so like we were all totally playing off those memes.
Cosworth chiming in, what is this? Did you miss that one?
Yeah, that might have been the first or second LAN you went to.
Yeah, I think it was real. I think the second
really
LAN
early
I
on.
went to. Yeah,
it was real early on at that point.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't know any of these nerds yet.
Exactly.
And now we're just going to each other's houses and building their data centers.
Right. Or in Yakto's case, in Zach's case, we show up to his house every PDX LAN and we install his raised tile floor for his data center. And he feeds us all barbecue.
To be fair, I did give him some really, really good soy sauce. The whiskey barrel-aged soy sauce.
Yeah.
Very, very fitting.
I have a bottle of that too.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you gave me a bottle of that too. Yep.
That's right. I bought a few of those and I was passing them around to a few people. Yeah.
Yep.
The one I bought for myself, though, I have the Sakura Blossom one. And I'm actually going to be mixing it with a few other things and making like a full-on barbecue sauce with it here probably in the next week.
Nice.
Because my family's doing a barbecue in about 2 weeks, a week or two from now. So I'm gonna basically put like 4 or 5 different sauces together or different ingredients together into a crock pot and just slow cook that and try to like see if I can conjure up some sort of really cool marinade or barbecue sauce or something.
Nice. Just slow cook it, reduce it down a little bit. Yeah. Nice.
And then use that. And like I said, one thing I love to do is take sauces and put it directly into the hamburger before you like fry it up on the grill. Oh yeah.
Yes.
So we're gonna have a good barbecue this summer for the family.
Yep. Nice. When is that? I could schedule my time up there. Like, hey, it's me, your cousin.
I mean that's kind of how the family rolls, though. Like, for a friend of the, like, as you know, like family is not blood. Families who you keep close to the heart.
That's exactly right.
That's all that matters.
I have so many people in my family who I chose. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because I still remember growing up, like there were certain friends from high school or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. They had stockings on my Christmas tree. Yep. My mother did that. My mother's like, you three are part of the family. You have a stocking, you get presents and everything. So like when you can come over, this is your stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how my house is always treated.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how we roll as well. So yeah. All right.
What else? What other weird news do we have?
Oh yeah. We could cover the NVIDIA Fire, the newest fable in the chapter.
See, you say that, my mind immediately goes to the data center fire that happened last week.
Right. Yeah, there was a data center between Vince and I, actually, in Hillsboro.
So basically Intel campus, or across the street from Intel campus.
Yes. Yeah.
To give you perspective.
Yep.
So not in the middle of nowhere. This is like data center capital of the Northwest.
Right. Yeah. In Hillsboro, apparently there was a UPS unit that caught fire in a data center.
Yep.
Burned for 5 hours because it was likely a lithium UPS. They couldn't put it out, and so they literally played containment on it for 5 hours and let it burn itself out.
Yeah. So the thing is that brings up an interesting thought before we get into the news topic there. I've been inside of the PDX building data centers. That's downtown Portland, Oregon. I've been inside there quite a few times.
I've been inside there quite a few times as well.
I love some of the UPSs they have there because they're not chemical based at all.
Right.
They have flywheels.
Yep.
So there's just this giant circular thing that's enclosed, and it's just spinning with centrifugal force.
Yep.
And if the building loses power, the generator or the motor turns into a generator, and it's just providing power back into the unit.
Yep.
And so you don't have to worry about fires or anything like that with it.
Yep.
It's just straight magnetism. And if you think, at the end of the day, what electricity do we make anywhere in the world that's not from a rotational generator? Like solar. That's it.
Yeah. No.
Everything. Because what is coal? Boiling water to turn a wheel. What is nuke?
I love
Boiling
that everyone
water.
thinks nuclear is like a glowing rod, and somehow that turns on a light bulb. And no, what it did, we boil water and turn a turbine. That's how a nuclear reactor works.
Yeah, that's nuke, that's coal, that's gas. All the major types of power plants is you boil water to turn a thing.
We have not evolved as a society since we developed the steam engine.
Yeah, pretty much. And okay, sure, here in the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of hydroelectric power plants. But that's just because we just have gravity feeding the water.
The water is already moving here.
Yeah. So it's like we have one of the largest power plants in the world here in Washington State with the Grand Coulee Dam.
Yeah.
It's a dam in the middle of the river. The river's flowing, and it has the thingies that spin, and the spinny with the magnets make the electric light thingies glow.
And here in my area, we're 90% hydro, or 98% hydro, and as a result, I pay 7.4 cents per kilowatt hour.
Interesting fact: Seattle and Tacoma used to be, and they're not anymore. Do you want to know why?
Why's that?
We've installed that much solar and wind.
That's right.
In Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
We have a massive wind farm, and we're starting to invest in solar at this point. So the only reason we're not that high on hydro is just because we're generating that much other green energy.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, honestly. You have the redundancy, and I know a lot of people like to complain about, solar only works during the day, but I'm like, look at the demand curve, and then look at the sun curve, and it's 1-to-1. Wow.
We only live during the day. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, it's interesting because look at energy engineering, and there's baseband load energy, and then there's demand energy, and they're not the same thing. So your nuke and your hydro is your baseband, and then your solar is your demand. Yeah. And they actually, it works perfectly, because otherwise what people don't realize is that these other power plants have to overproduce when they're not using it, because they can't spool up or spin down.
Yeah.
With a nuclear power plant, it takes days to spin up and spin down a nuke.
Yep.
So during the night when you're not using it, that's just wasted energy.
Yeah.
Versus solar, it's almost a 1-to-1 with the demand curve of humans.
Yep.
It's actually this is one of the greatest achievements we've made with production, is just using solar. And everyone's like, oh, well, it's a curve. And it's yeah, because that's what demand is, actually.
Yeah, but it turns out us humans like being awake when there's daylight and like sleeping when there's not.
Wow. And most of the energy consumption actually is factories. Yeah, because that's another weird thing going around the internet. It's this thing used X% of energy. And it's it's about a third goes to homes, a third goes to factories, and a third goes to commercial, just normal commercial.
Right.
And so it's the stores, they shut down, the lights get turned off, the factories get shut down, and the lights get turned off. At nighttime, there's not that much energy usage in comparison. No. Yeah.
Cosworth sends over $5. Thank you very much, sir.
Cool.
Steampunk style data center UPSs. That's the most Portlandian thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah, with the flywheel UPSs. Yeah, like I said, it's a great concept, but it only works at large scale. You can't do that at home, really.
Yeah.
It only works because it is a data center.
Yeah.
We were talking, what was the news story we're talking about?
NVIDIA's RTX 5090.
Another one caught fire.
One caught fire. And this time, the reason this is newsworthy and not just like another 5090 caught fire is because this one happened with one of MSI's foolproof color-coded cables. The cable that lets you know if it's plugged in all the way because you can still see the color on the tip of it. That MSI says, hey, it's foolproof. If you see yellow, you need to plug it in further. And look, it's plugged in all the way. Hey, look, that cable's burnt.
Yeah, so I have some theories about this. And I mean, this goes back to the same theories that have been discussed a million times over.
Yeah. We
are running these cables at maximum spec at full load, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's what 6 power, 6 ground. So basically, just assume 6 cables for the power delivery because that's the side that's screwing up.
Yep.
If they don't have even contact, you don't have even resistance, you don't have even current, you don't have even power overall. Simple as that. It doesn't matter if it's fully seated or not because pins will wiggle a little bit and they won't be perfectly mated.
Yep.
And the way Molex connectors work, because this all goes back to the base Molex spec, where you have like a pin and then a square that goes over the pin like this.
Yep.
And it's on all 4 sides, but the pin will bend a little bit over time and the square will bend a little bit over time. So eventually, instead of being like this, you're like this slightly, right? And you're only making a little bit of a tip and a little bit of a tip here. And having just that little bit of contact, like if you're ever so slightly off on one pin and not another, the amount of current and resistance will actually shift just naturally. That's just how electronics work. If you don't have per pin control, which it looks like Seasonic is doing, by the way. I saw that. Seasonic announced a new power supply at Computex.
That they are separating the ground pins per power delivery pin to mitigate this issue.
Yes.
So they can do
and
basically
they're
circuit breaking on the PSU side.
Yeah, and they're doing per pin monitoring of the voltages and the current on every single pin and thermal testing of all the wires. And if any of those trip, it will do the normal overcurrent, overpower protection of the PSU and shut itself off.
Yep.
So, like, yeah, sure, you're going to lose your gaming session, but you also didn't fry your components.
Yep.
So it's like, it's a middle ground. I would like to see it go one step further where there's some sort of communication where you could just downclock the card and send a notification to the OS. It's kind of like a laptop. If you unplug you unplug from the wall, the battery drains, you get to a certain point and it sends a notification saying, hey, you're low on power. Or just the way GPUs handle in general, like if you hit a current limit or a thermal limit, it'll start throttling the card down. Like that's where we should be. We have the throttling tech. We've had the throttling tech for what, 15 years now or something?
Yeah.
Why aren't we just throttling? Like, it's so simple. Like, the cards already have all the software, the BIOS, and everything, but there's just not the communication between we're delivering this much current, we can't deliver it all. The card can downclock itself and tell you it's doing so. That's what we should be doing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Instead, the 5090, it's like, oh, what if all 6 pins are just tied together on the same bus bar on the GPU?
Yep.
And then we're only monitoring the final current, and that's it.
Yep.
Like, such a dumb design. Like, it's not the plug, it is the PCB.
Yeah. I will put some of the blame on the decision to use that plug because because they are maxing out the spec of that particular plug.
Yes.
They are flirting with a line unlike anything that we do with any other spec within the ATX realm, within the Molex realm. The
margin of error.
The margin of error is so slim. The PCI Express 8-pin plug, the Molex spec says it's rated for 300 watts. However, the physical spec can do double that. And it's the same thing for EPS pins as well. The PCIe spec is 150 watts. The EPS spec is 300 watts. So if you're doing 4 power, 4 ground, that cable is rated to do 300 watts per Molex. That cable can handle 600 watts. A single CPU power delivery cable.
Well, yeah, because if you look at it, they're thicker gauge cable, thicker gauge connectors, better mating.
Yep.
Like everything across the board on EPS cables.
Yeah.
Like GPUs should have just used EPS.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like, end of story.
We've been using EPS on server grade cards for a decade.
Yes.
All of the weird GPUs that you've seen me use on this channel, the Tesla M40, the Grid 340, the M60, the P40, the P120, All of those, the P100, they all use EPS. Every single one of those cards.
And I mean, at this point, why are we using different connectors for the motherboard and GPU anyway?
They should have just switched over to EPS. The cable was already there. They were already available in bulk. Every power supply manufacturer already did them.
Yeah. And this is going to be controversial, and there's going to be people in chat that yell at me for this.
I don't care.
ATX 20 and 24 should have gone away a long time ago, too.
I agree.
It should be literally just EPS. 12 and ground, that's all you need. The few devices that need otherwise already have onboard voltage regulators.
Yep.
And are already using those and not the other voltages.
Yeah, there should be no reason in the world we're still delivering 5 volts to a motherboard.
3.3, 1 point whatever. Yeah, 3.3, the 1 point whatever. The negative voltages, the -5, -12.
Yep.
And I know, like I said, people are going to yell at me about that, but when you start looking at PCBs and how tiny VRMs are now, and start looking at all your different cards, like you're talking about like your NVMe drives and other stuff, how many of them actually do have onboard VRMs now?
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
Yep.
They're going to be tiny little chips, because you can make them tiny when you only need a small amount of current.
Yep.
And so there's no reason to have all these other voltages anymore.
Yep. It simplifies power supply design. It makes that a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
You no longer have to convert 120 AC to 12 volt to 5 to 3.3 to 1.1. You can simply deliver really good quality 12 volt on multiple buses.
Well, that's actually how a lot of modern power supplies are anyway now. They're not actually, because the older power supplies, like me working on the retro stuff, the transformer will have multiple outputs.
Yeah.
Modern transformers are 120 and 12 volt out, or whatever the input is, 12 volt out, and then a separate circuit to step down from 12 to whatever else.
Yep.
So you have the main conversion circuit, then a secondary conversion circuit. So you're doing it all in the power supply, or you can do it on the device itself.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
Patch says 100% agree. Why didn't 12VO take off? No idea. Probably because it's different.
Well, the fact that it's different, and there wasn't a good conversion path from ATX to 12VO. Unless
they simply switch. No one on the motherboard side of things said, you know what? All of our motherboards from X date moving forward are going to be 12VO.
So the problem with 12VO is I do believe that's still a different cable. Like if it was, again, EPS. There are some ITX boards that are EPS only. Like those are usually the low spec ones that are using like laptop CPUs that are embedded on them.
Yeah.
A lot of those boards will have just a single EPS cable.
A lot of the Celeron, the NAS boxes, like the Celeron J1900s, a lot of those were EPS only. Yeah.
Yeah, but think about it. Like if we just started making other motherboards that are just dual or quad or dual triple quad EPS, because power supplies already support that, and we've already seen that with high-end workstation boards, like the Threadripper boards will have multiple EPS connectors on them to power that chip. So why don't we just do straight EPS at this point?
Yep.
Like the tech is there, and because again, I think the problem was the fact that 12VO was different, and you'd have to support one and the other and have a conversion path.
Right.
Ignore 12VO, just go straight EPS. You're done.
But not only that. If a motherboard manufacturer said, you know what, all of our boards from now on are going to be 12VO or are only going to be EPS, they need a power supply manufacturer to come on board with that as well. Well, if you're an Asus or a Gigabyte or an MSI, you also make the power supplies. Just make the switch. There's nothing to say you have to stop manufacturing your standard 24-pin power supplies, but all of your new power supplies should be 12VO compatible. Make the switch and just do it, and just be done. Like, so you control the standard. You're the one that's perpetuating this issue.
Yeah, Christopher in chat, none of my SSDs accept 12 volt anymore, only 3.3, but that's like I said, they're probably not even 3.3. They probably have a 3v3 and a VRM to downclock that to 1 point something.
Yeah.
A lot of chips today are 1.5, 1.3, 1.2 volt, somewhere in that range. And also, if they're SSDs, let's say like a SATA or a SAS SSD, right? Most SATA power cables don't even have the 3v3 volt line attached to it.
Yeah, they're not even terminated anymore.
So every device is already using either the 5 or the 12 to convert down anyway on it. because so few devices or so few cables have the 3v3 volt. Nothing relies on that actually existing.
Yep.
So the 3v3 volt line is literally worthless in a computer now because of that compatibility issue.
Yep.
Nobody wants to manufacture a drive that when you plug it in just doesn't work. Like, that's just a nightmare for returns, even though it's not the drive's fault, it is the power supply's fault or the cable's fault.
Yep.
So they'll just use the contingency of like, well, we have to down convert to 1.2 anyway from, do we do it from 3v3 or do we do it from 12? Let's do it from 12 because it's a more reliable rail anyway with a more amperage.
And it's an easier conversion from 120 AC. You know, it's a far more efficient conversion than 5 volt is.
Thank you, Cause. I'm totally not a CIA plant.
I saw that. Cosworth sends over another $2. Vince's shirt says he's definitely not a CIA plant. Yes, I am totally normal American like you. We are drinking ciders and talking technology.
This cider is Seattle.
Yes.
Seattle. It is very local cider.
Yes. Local to where I am at right now.
I am very Seattle. I am very, very Seattle. Let me go Space Needle.
I take an American Science Museum on weekend.
Yes. We go ride monorail. Oh, yeah. Too much good stuff.
Thank you, Cosworth.
Thank you much.
Cosworth also says for $2 a couple minutes ago, only at scale for flywheel UPS, don't tempt Yocto.
Oh, God. To be fair, though, Yocto is scale.
This is true.
If you're putting in subflooring, you're at a certain scale.
Yeah.
That is not a home lab. I mean, we literally just call it YOLO Colo because that's what it is.
Well, that's for other reasons. So for a number of years, so I don't know if anyone's ever like read the LCARs on my screen, but a lot of them have hidden messages. A couple of weeks ago, I started doing this one right here, which is actually Yocto. So yeah, Yocto has been permanently enshrined in a number of talking heads now.
And well-deserving, too. Well-deserving.
Yeah.
Again, Yocto's meat. Like, you can't not love Yocto's meat.
Yeah, the way Yocto's wife rubs his meat is just... It's fantastic.
Yep.
Yes, Yocto in his small, humble home lab.
The smallest and most humble.
I'm just a backwoods sysadmin.
40 kilowatt dedicated for home lab.
Yep.
I don't even have remotely that much power available to my home as a whole, I think.
Yeah, he has 400 amp to that garage.
Yeah. So, like...
And he uses the excess to charge his cars and crap.
Yeah, it's like... I find it hilarious. Like, my home here, I'm on a 150 amp master breaker before it even gets to my breaker box. There's a breaker. There's a breaker box in the utility room, and then there's a wire that goes to my breaker box, right?
Yeah.
And the master breaker is 150, so I'm like, okay, that's decent enough, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not like I can't do super crazy stuff, but it's like I think it's good enough at least. But it's no Yocto.
It's no Yocto. Right.
And that's why I'm like, do I just take my servers and shove them at his house?
I mean...
That's what you did.
Yeah. I've got a couple over there.
Yeah.
I'm actually been meaning to move my backup server over there as well. There's also a couple fun projects coming up where we're going to colo some stuff at YOLO Colo.
Yep.
And open them up for testing. I have right now in my server rack, I can talk about the server now because the embargo passed. I have one of Supermicro's brand new multi-node 3U servers.
3U, not 2U.
3U server.
So this is new for them.
Yes, it is a new form factor for them.
Yes.
Technically, this could support up to 10 nodes in a 3U box.
Wow, because they're usually doing 4 nodes in a 2U.
They're using 4 in a 2U. This is a 10-node 3U server.
Holy crap.
Epic 4005. So 16 cores and 128 gigs per node is how it's configured right now.
Is it single or dual socket per node?
Single. It's AM5 Epic. But it's basically a 9950X, but in Epic form per node.
Yeah, but it's the AM5 Epic, not the whatever the
correct.
Actual...
So it's also a 5.6 gigahertz boost clock.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I get what you're saying.
Oh, they're spicy. Oh,
that's a lot. That's a lot of gaming.
Yeah,
that's all I'm gonna say. That's a lot of gaming.
So normally the server holds 10 nodes. Mine is configured with 8 nodes because 2 of them also have GPUs in them.
Ooh.
So there are 6 compute nodes with 6 Epic 4565Ps, I want to say, the 16-core real spicy boys. And then there's 2 additional nodes with the same CPUs that also have MI210s.
Oh. That's a little different.
Yes.
Ooh. That's exciting.
So you'll be seeing that video within the next couple of weeks, hopefully. We're aiming for like June 15th release date on that video.
That is only a couple weeks.
It's only a couple weeks away. Yeah. Don't remind me. I've got a lot of work to do on this one. So, I also have incoming 12 7.68 terabyte U.2s of the fastest NVMe drive that exists today.
Is that Kyocera or Kioxia?
They are not.
Oh, somebody else
is
in this mix.
Yes. Oh, someone else is in this mix.
Cool.
I don't know if I can say quite who yet.
That's
I
fine.
need to review, but I have some 7.68s on the way.
Yeah, I'm real curious about the storage arrangement on that Supermicro though, because I know a lot of theirs they'll put like 2 drives per node or 4 drives per node or something like that.
This has a single M.2 as well as 2 U.2s.
That's the configuration they're using?
Yes.
Yeah, because what I personally would like to see is more like SAS backplane style, where multiple nodes can access the same drives at the same time.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, because I mean, like, technically the hardware for SAS is designed to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that some of the NVMe backplanes can probably do that too.
Yeah.
It's just that it's also the cost of it, though. I know that would just drive the cost straight up.
Yeah. Or you could just Ethernet over Fabric all that crap.
I mean, thank you, Western Digital.
Just saying.
I'm so excited for that.
That might be an option. Yeah.
Yeah, because at that point, local storage doesn't matter anymore.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's like, how much networking bandwidth do each of these nodes have?
These are dual 10s, I want to say.
Okay.
So for compute, plenty. If you're needing to do storage control, maybe not as fantastic.
Well, like I said, but if you use them for, like I said, if they're gaming, 1 gigabyte a second is plenty. Like, I know people will have their ePeens out for Gen 4, Gen 5, how many lanes and all this other crap. But I'm like, once you hit the bare minimum NVMe, there's almost no difference from the absolute slowest to the absolute fastest in terms of game load time and game responsiveness.
That's exactly correct. Yeah, a Gen 3x2 drive performs as well in games as a Gen 5x4.
Yes.
Plus or minus 1 second in a load screen. That's it.
To be fair, though, as a DBA, I do notice the difference.
Yes. Yeah.
But honestly, the only workload, and this is kind of what's been pissing me off about NVMe and like all these companies pushing the highest and the highest bandwidth and all this crap and showing the benchmarks.
Yeah.
It's like, other than relational databases, nothing else can use this.
Yeah.
And despite saying that, though, we talked about, the small form factor ITX rigs.
Mm-hmm.
I was quite possibly the very first person at PDX LAN to have a Gen 4 NVMe, because I ordered all the hardware and had it delivered between my house and my brother's house just because of whoever could get it faster. And we built the rig at PDX LAN.
Yeah.
So I had a Gen 4 NVMe like the week that it came out.
Yeah.
The very, very first one from Sabrent.
Yeah.
The Sabrent Rocket. And at that point, Gen 4 barely broke 5 gigabytes a second. That was the target. Because Gen 3 was, what, like 3 point something, I believe, gigabytes a second. And yeah, the Rocket. Yeah, I had the 1 terabyte variant is what I was using at the time.
Yeah, this is the 2 terabyte. Yeah.
Yeah, so we put it in the rig. We built the rig. Like I said, we built the DAN case at PDX LAN fall 2019, me and my brother. And then I went and hit the crystal disk mark on it just to test the drive. I'm like, the marketing says 5 gigs a second. And by the way, prior to this, I'd only used SATA. I'd never owned personally anything faster than SATA.
Yeah.
So that's a massive leap in performance. I did that benchmark, 20, 30 people surrounded my desk. I didn't even tell people I was doing this. Word spread that fast that I had Gen 4 NVMe and I was benchmarking it.
Yeah.
And there was a crowd of people behind me to see that final 5 gigabytes a second mark hit. But I knew that it didn't matter.
Yeah.
That's also why I kind of didn't care. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of better performance between SATA to NVMe for gaming, but like, otherwise, it doesn't matter.
Yep, it really doesn't.
Like, I still have a SATA drive and a more modern Gen 4 drive in that rig now. And my Steam library is half and half split between the two. I don't notice the difference.
Yeah.
I cannot perceivably tell the difference on what game I installed where. I don't even remember.
You know what's really funny is, we talked a lot about the Steam Deck and handhelds earlier, is loading games on mobile hardware. There's almost no perceivable difference between the Gen 3 or Gen 4 NVMe drive and the micro SD card slot.
There is a little bit there. This is where I'm going to actually push back on the micro SDs specifically, because good micro SDs, no, there's not going to be much of a difference.
Right.
But there are some really, really terrible ones.
Yes, there are.
A topic I don't know if we've ever gotten into on this channel. The Nintendo Switch 2 mandates SD Express now.
SD Express, yes.
You cannot use it normal. And everyone's like, oh, why did Nintendo do that? And my very first thought was, do y'all remember the really, really terrible glitches in the open world Pokemon game? The only people that had those glitches were the ones running with slow, crappy SD cards.
Yep.
Anybody who had it installed on the system itself did not have an issue.
Yep.
And that's because the game streamed the data in real time, kind of like a lot of games do when you don't have enough RAM. You just stream, and open world games in general, you stream in the bits that you're currently viewing and currently interacting with and unload everything else, and you bring data in and out dynamically on the fly.
Yep.
With the SD cards, it couldn't load them fast enough, so that's when you got all the glitches of things either popping in or things loading wrong, and because it's trying to process while loading at the same time.
Right. One thing we know about the Nintendo Switch 2 now is also that it's running on NVIDIA Ampere, which does support GPU direct storage, and so I'm wondering if there's some component of GPU direct storage that they are tying in to make sure you're at least on a PCI Express link.
Yeah, well, because that's a good point too. Is the GPU Direct requires PCI Express, and SD Express is PCI Express.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
it literally is PCI Express on an SD card slot.
Yep. So I'm wondering if there's some component of implementation there now that they're on Ampere instead of Maxwell.
Well, we also mentioned SteamOS being allowed on other hardware now, but one of the requirements for SteamOS is actually NVMe storage.
Yes.
And I immediately, I made a Bluesky post about this, immediately calling them out about this, while agreeing with them, mind you. I do agree with them that we should be at that scale now, because the lowest model Steam Deck does not use NVMe. It uses eMMC.
That's right.
And I'm like, Steam, look at yourself, please.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they picked good eMMC. I will admit that they picked it themselves, and it is only one model has it. But they're just telling everybody else, no, you're not allowed to do this. But that's also, the Steam Deck's been out for years now at this point. And they're saying, no, the minimum hardware spec is now higher than what we launched with.
Yeah.
And I give them kudos for doing that. Like, it is a tough decision to make.
There is something about controlling your lowest common denominator.
Yeah.
And when you're giving out hardware requirements, even though something is possible, and this is something that people in my community, I call out for occasionally. Like, it says it requires this, but I got it working with this. I said, yeah, that's you got it working with this.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about the jank that everyone else is trying to apply. And
you're the exception, not the rule.
That's exactly right. And
so, we do a lot of exceptional things, and we have to describe it that way. We do exceptional things in this community, like especially your Discord. There's a lot of exceptional things, and the thing is, when you use that word specifically, like when you say just exception versus exceptional, like those two words are interchangeable, and it really is
Same
like
word.
No, we do cool things, but we have to understand that exceptional literally means we are the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Yeah, because like I'm known for doing Jankinator stuff. Like I do janky stuff. You brought it up at the beginning, like what I've done with Voodoo cards, with like PCI slots with the modern GPUs. Like we do weird stuff. We can make it work, but I ain't never gonna tell anybody else to do this.
Right.
It wasn't easy. It was a pain. It was a struggle.
How many times on my channel have I said I do not recommend you follow in my footsteps?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
well, okay, so I'm just going to come back to the A2000 that I have here real quick, right? Normal NVIDIA drivers don't even work on this. You have to use hacked drivers, and there's a project called the Frankenstein Project, which Green from your community pointed me directly to those. He's also the one who pointed out the card to us in general, right?
Yeah.
But they pointed me into the Frankenstein drivers on GitHub, and they're literally called the NVIDIA Frankenstein drivers, and that got this to work finally. But like again, you have to hack it and do weird stuff to make it work. Yeah, it works in the end. It does cool stuff at the end, but you have to go through all this exceptional stuff to make it work. More American with a lossless dual GPU jank. I do believe from what you've shared that iGPUs might work with lossless, and it's something I've been considering is actually pairing just one of these GPUs with an iGPU to see if I can get lossless scaling working, like especially with this A2000.
Yeah.
Like I do plan on trying to see what I can do with that.
That might be a lot of fun. Maybe not on a standard iGPU, but maybe something like a Ryzen 8700G that has that has like an i780 or something like that, like 8 cores or 12 cores of RDNA 3, where that's actually a conceivable combination of pairing like an RTX 5060 or a 6700 XT or something like that to an integrated graphics solution like a 780M and seeing what it can do.
So here's an interesting thought. I don't think it is, but like the USB-C port on a Steam Deck, is that Thunderbolt? I don't think so, but
define Thunderbolt. It is a multi-purpose USB-C. It does support DisplayPort Alt.
But does it support PCI Express?
I don't recall.
But there are other handhelds that do, and there are others that have Oculink, because
a number of them do. Yes.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
Most handhelds support Thunderbolt. Yes.
Because external GPU dock, and then using
using the integrated on the
console itself, and then taking that to PDX LAN. Talk about jank, but interesting and awesome setups.
You've got me thinking some really evil thoughts right now.
And again, being exceptional. That is us being exceptional. This is not something we're gonna.
Here's the one hitch in that setup.
Yeah.
Okay. Is to make all this work, your video output has to come from the lossless scaling card, not from your rendering card.
Right.
So you would need a console with dual Thunderbolt or dual USB-C, so you could pipe the video output from your onboard GPU out through its own dedicated display.
Hey Jeff, I think I know a system that has everything we need.
Yeah, I have a couple of them. I have a 1X. I have a 1X Fly.
No, I'm thinking something completely different that you do have. I do believe.
Okay.
GPD Win.
I do have a GPD Win.
GPD Win has all of the ports on it, doesn't it?
That is correct. I have a dedicated. I have a full size HDMI on that.
Oh yeah, that's what I was saying.
We can go direct out.
I do believe that has everything.
Okay. So my GPD Win has Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4, but not Oculink, and so I do not have a Thunderbolt dock right now. But in theory, what we could do is grab a Thunderbolt dock and an HDMI monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And make all that work. Or I could adapt to the X4 extra PCI Express slot on the bottom of the box for an Oculink adapter. That could also work. You
do realize that we're for Cause over here, we're making his wet dream come true with this.
Oh yeah. Or Oculink 4. Sorry, not Oculink 4, but the new GPD WinMax 2 2025 variant with the HX370 AI. That also has HDMI and an Oculink port already built in. Like maybe GPD could finally acknowledge that I exist and send one over and I'll test it.
Yeah, this laptop I'm actually using right now for the call, I'd considered trying to do lossless. Like it's older hardware, but it is a laptop that has an APU and a GPU. Mm-hmm. Interesting scenario that I ran into. One day I was just monitoring my usage. My resource usage while playing UT 2004. So really old game, right?
Yeah.
It's 144 hertz 1080p screen. So just standard laptop gaming screen, right?
Yeah.
And obviously 2K4 is a really old game. I'm like, oh yeah, this laptop runs it perfectly. And perfect VSync, 144 hertz always, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was doing resource monitoring that I realized it only used the integrated graphics.
Yeah.
That tech has come that far along that an iGPU was playing 1080p 144 hertz locked perfectly always.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it was just an amazing experience. Just realizing that.
Well, I mean, the HX370 with the 780M, the 12 compute unit of RDNA 3.5, that is twice as fast as a Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck is kind of the baseline hardware target for a lot of game developers anymore for PC is can it work on Steam Deck?
Yeah, we were actually literally just a couple hours ago in your Discord, we were chatting about this tonight. And that's kind of been my thought as sitting on the loose side of development, is that developers need a hardware platform to target, because otherwise PCs has just kind of been the Wild West of hardware.
Yeah.
Like with the game console, like, okay, you have 5 generations of PlayStation Plus Pros, you have the various Nintendo consoles, the Microsoft consoles, and so you basically have one specific hardware target every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
That's how consoles are, like somewhere in that range, right? Because consoles are about a 5-year life cycle, and then the mid-generation and whatnot.
Yeah.
PCs is like you have 10 GPUs, 10 CPUs, or even more every single freaking year, and a mismatch of like ins and outs, the amount of RAM, the RAM bandwidth, like...
You also have 10 years of back catalog of hardware that is still very common.
Yeah, and so Valve came out with the Steam Deck and was like, reference platform.
Yeah.
There's going to be a few million of one and only one hardware on the market, except for the storage, right?
Yeah.
The storage is the only thing we're going to tweak. Otherwise, this is the reference platform. And with Steam, it only works because Steam is also the store. It's a complete ecosystem. So Valve was like, hey, we're going to release this hardware, and game developers are like, well, there's 5, 10, 20 million, however many are out in the market now. They're like, well, there's that many of those things, and we want these people to buy our games. They won't buy our games if they don't work on this hardware.
Right.
This is the same reason why game developers port their games to consoles in the first place.
Yep.
Like, we want... at the end of the day, it's a business.
Yeah. Porting your game to a console exposes your title to 180 million additional viewers.
Yes. And that's dollars at the end of the day.
Yep.
And so the Steam Deck is like, hey, we now have a reference platform, and I love the fact that it is a handheld, low-powered system, because it's forced game developers to target a low-spec platform and ensure that their games will work.
Yep.
And it was brought up in chat that, 1650, 1660 owners, right? like they're not left in the dust with most modern games. There are a few that won't run up, but most modern games will run on those almost perfectly. Even if you're running at low detail, which is fine, you're still playing the game and having a good experience.
Yeah.
Because the Steam Deck exists.
Yep. Yeah, the Steam Deck is roughly GTX 1050 level graphics, but with 8 gigabytes of video memory.
Speaking of 8 gigs of video memory.
See what I was doing there?
That was totally 8 gigs of video memory.
384 episodes in. I think I know how to make a segue. AMD came out, and not to be the only graphics card manufacturer trying to shoot themselves in the foot in sequential weeks. AMD claims that most gamers don't need more than 8 gigabytes of video memory after their 9060 XT launched during Computex, hot on the heels of the RTX 5060 8 gigabyte launch, in which everyone pretty much lambasted NVIDIA for the same statement, as well as a number of other things. Namely not giving reviewers access to drivers. I'll go full disclosure here and say I was offered the 5060 as a review model from a number of different manufacturers. I did accept review units from a number of different manufacturers. However, they said they weren't even allowed to ship me the card until after May 19th. So to my knowledge, none of my review units have even shipped yet. Nor did my 5060 drivers ever appear in the NVIDIA review portal, in the NVIDIA press portal for downloading drivers. So even if I had received the cards, I was not one of the gifted few who received early access drivers, which was very odd because that's only happened a couple other times, namely with the 1650. I think is the last time this really happened.
And word on the street is basically that happened to everybody, though.
Yeah, no one received.
This wasn't a Jeff Craft computing issue. This was a tech reviewer across the board issue.
Right. Yeah, this was no one received drivers outside of a couple select outlets.
Or didn't receive hardware, like you mentioned too. Like a lot of the reviewers didn't get hardware.
As I understand it, there was not a review embargo this time around. If you got a card and you had a driver, you could review it and publish your results immediately. There was a shipping embargo placed on the board partners where they could not ship the cards until after I had already left for Computex.
We have altered the deal. Pray we don't alter it further.
Correct.
Yeah, that's basically what this is. Yeah, because like embargoes, like on individual reviewers, that's a lot of people to keep track of. But the corporate side, they just wised up and like, hey, if we have like 3 or 4 partners, if we just control them instead, we control everything.
Yeah.
They like NVIDIA figured out how to play the game, and it sucks. It sucks for us as consumers. It sucks for you as a reviewer.
Yeah. I will say, this is not defending NVIDIA. Do not misunderstand the words I am about to say. NVIDIA doesn't have to play by our rules. NVIDIA doesn't have to seed reviewers cards early. They don't have to give graphics drivers or early access or early release or review white papers or anything like that. That has been industry standard practice for a couple of decades. And that has been, for the most part, followed by almost every company. But I was told by a graphics card manufacturer at Computex that Intel is not allowing their graphics cards to go to social media influencers right now because they don't feel the drivers are ready. You can go out and buy this card right now. And I could go buy this card as a reviewer and review it right now. But Intel has forbid them from sampling social media influencers and reviewers and sites like mine because they are not ready to claim the drivers are ready.
The Intel one is really interesting because, Intel hasn't been in the mid to high-end GPU game for a while. Mm-hmm. Like, they're new to it, right?
Right.
But every review has been almost exactly the same in that it's been positive. It doesn't matter if the drivers have been bad.
Well, I'll just say this is for Maxon and the dual GPU card.
Yeah, it's like, well, because like every review has been like, we want a third competitor to force AMD and NVIDIA to get their crap together. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, okay, Intel, like, we know you're new to this. You are a bunch of old ex-NVIDIA engineers, and we know that. Mm-hmm. And that for the life of the ARC cards, the drivers got phenomenally better between day one and day whatever we're at now. Like,
Yeah.
and every review is going to have that sentiment in it. It's like, we know Intel is busting ass to make this a better platform.
Yeah.
This is just what it is today, but literally tomorrow or next week, it will be better. And we know that right now.
But it's also in Intel's best interest to not flood the review cycle with negative reviews if they know there's enough jank in their product, even though they're selling it right now, to not have that impression out on the market. They are controlling the narrative no more so than NVIDIA is controlling the narrative of the 5060.
I think Intel, I think Intel, if I remember correctly, did this as well with the original ARC launch, where they launched it. They launched it in China first, and you had to import cards.
Yeah.
Because again, the really, really early samples went to only select markets.
Yeah,
because they didn't want the media to have them yet.
Yeah, the A380 was one of those cards. I ended up ordering one from China and getting one on hand. I don't think that video ever made it to the channel, but I did get one so I could start testing out, mainly for the AV1 encoding, because it was impossible to get a card for less than $700 that did AV1 at the time. And I went,
AV encoding?
That's exactly right. And I wanted to check that out. I still have that card, the A380 that's out in my garage. But Intel did the same thing. Why aren't they being raked over the coals for this? Call it right, call it wrong. Fair is fair, right?
We have to treat all the manufacturers on a level playing field. That is like the job of a review. And if one company does something wrong and then the next company does the same thing wrong, they deserve equal treatment. But I mean, historically, that's never been how it is. There's always been a bit of favoritism or a bit of extra pressure on certain companies.
We're viewing Intel right now as the plucky upstart because they're new to the graphics card industry.
Even though technically they're not.
Even though they're yeah, I mean, exactly.
Even excluding their iGPUs that they've been doing for decades, they've had other GPUs.
Do you know how many Knights Landing cards I have in my garage right now?
Yeah, it's like Intel has experimented with so much stuff that they've been involved with so many chips over the years.
Yeah,
like it's
but
the new and upcomer, like you described.
Yeah, they're the plucky little upstart right now because they're new to the gaming graphics industry. No, they shouldn't get to play by a different set of rules or bend the rules that exist for the rest of everyone.
And they're still a mega corporation. I mean, like, if you think about it, AMD exists because vendors needed a second source for x86 chips in the 80s.
Yep. And Cyrix lost out.
Yeah. Getting into the old tech there.
Yeah. But and look, we as reviewers, and again, I'm not defending NVIDIA. Do not misunderstand me here. We as reviewers love to be able to raise a pitchfork and go, oh, they're changing the rules and NVIDIA's not allowing reviewers to have the 5060. No, they said you could have it just after the retail launch, which they've done multiple times before. But putting my head halfway up my ass and seeing this from NVIDIA's perspective, if you are launching the RTX 5060 and you look at the last 60 series launches of all your previous generation cards, and we look at the Steam hardware survey, and we see 8 out of the 10 most popular GPUs on the market today are the RTX 4060, the RTX 3060, the RTX 3060 Ti, the RTX 1060, the 2060, the 2060 Super. They're all on that list. Every single one of them. This card, the RTX 5060, is going to sell out regardless of what anyone says of it. It will be the best-selling card of all time. Do you give a crap if you piss off reviewers? Do you care if reviewers never get their hands on this card? Do you care if people get mad that you didn't seed reviewers and give early samples? No, it's not going to matter to your bottom line. So F them, right?
Yeah.
And so from like a corporate perspective, I absolutely understand this decision.
Yeah. Looking at the Steam hardware survey right now, so this is the April one, I believe. To get away from a 50, 60, or 70 series card, 18th place on the list.
Yeah.
That's the 3080.
Yeah, the 3070, last I checked, might have been 8th. which is again another 8 GB card, which is absolutely hilarious to me. But to get a card with even like more than 1.5% market share, you've got to go like 25th place, and everything above it is a 60 card, sometimes a 70 series card,
or 50 series even.
Or 50 series, right?
The 1650, which we mentioned earlier, is number 4 on the list.
Yeah. The card that I said years ago is the new budget king, and everyone's going to love, even though reviewers hated it.
Oh, yeah.
And don't spend too much for it, but it's a competent enough card. It's the 4th popular card of all time.
And by the way, one of the cards ahead of it, which is actually in number 1 right now in their current survey, is a laptop GPU.
Yep. So
that's not even things people are buying individual cards for. So technically, it's a 3rd discrete slot-in card.
Yeah.
It's the 1650.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing little card.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway,
should we as reviewers get upset that NVIDIA is not seeding and not playing fair? Absolutely. But from a corporate perspective, I'm going to be honest, I'd probably make the same decision.
And as far as the topic back at hand, should we care about the 8 gig or not?
Right.
I feel both sides of this, honestly.
I do.
I mean, this goes back to a lot of discussions that you have and we've had in private, that there is a lot of nuance here.
Yeah.
It's like how I brought up the Steam Deck. Like, it's a reference platform and has forced developers to have a specific hardware target in mind, and that is with 8 gigs of VRAM in mind. And we don't always need to turn the eye candy up to max. And how many games do you have and how many do you lose out on? I'm going to throw a thorn in every single viewer's side all in one statement.
Sweet.
How many games are in your Steam library? And not just the count, how many have you basically not played?
Right. My count is over 900 now.
Mine's approximately the same.
Yeah.
In that same ballpark.
Yeah.
I'm just shy of 1,000.
I've probably played 400 of them.
And is that seriously played, or you opened it, you screwed around a little bit, and you closed it?
Seriously played, probably 250. So
probably in the same ballpark.
So about a third. About a third, maybe trending less than a third, have I seriously played 10 to 12 hours of.
There are literally tens of thousands of games you can play with 8 gigs of VRAM. There are tens of games, just tens of games that you cannot.
Right. And the tens of games that you cannot, those are only when you cross certain thresholds. You can play Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p at high settings and use 6 gigabytes of VRAM.
Yep. That may not be with like the latest and greatest path tracing.
Right.
But I mean, that doesn't make the game less playable. It just makes it less like perfect eye candy.
Makes it less pretty.
And to be fair, that path tracing didn't exist on launch day anyway.
That's exactly
as we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
So it's like that's technically like DLC eye candy. Maybe free DLC or whatever, but it's like it's later eye candy that did not even exist at launch.
There's a couple of games that are straight up off limits because of technical reasons, because the 1650 doesn't have ray tracing, and so Indiana Jones won't even launch.
Yeah.
There's one other. Doom: The Dark Ages also requires ray tracing.
The new Doom game. Yeah. But that's what I said. It's literally tens of games you can't, and tens of thousands you can.
Right.
So it's like, can you game? Because one thing that always pisses me off is that like they're like, oh, this is a 1080p card, this is a 1440p card, this is a 4K card, right? When I first got my 4K OLED, no HDMI 2.1 adapter existed anywhere on the market yet.
Yeah.
The 3000 series was not on the market, and AMD was a little bit later than NVIDIA. So I was playing 1440p 120 hertz.
Yep.
Because that's the most you can do you can either 4K 60 or 1440 120.
Yeah.
That's the most you can do out of previous gen cards. I had an RX 480.
Yep.
I was playing games 1440p 120 hertz on that OLED. Was it the launch day AAA game of that year? No. But again, there's tens of thousands of back catalog games.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the game that I was playing the most at the time, Horizon Chase Turbo, it was still a recently released game. It's just it wasn't targeting pushing the GPU to the end. It was targeting how much fun can you have in a game.
Yeah.
The game is fun as hell no matter what. Like, I don't care. And the game is still artistically pretty.
Yeah.
Is it realist? No. And I've personally been a gamer that's never cared about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a gamer that cares about how fun it is and does it have like an artistic appeal.
Yeah.
And that game does. And there's thousands, tens of thousands of games that do.
Yeah.
So
I have stated multiple times that for years, my main gaming rig was a Ryzen 3600 and an RTX 3050 because I wanted a low power, low heat gaming PC
that's trash tier.
To sit in my living room and game on a 27-inch 1440p monitor. I just recently, like 3 months ago, upgraded that from the RTX 3050 to an RTX 4060. And I did that because I happened to have two RTX 4060s. I had the low profile and the standard one. My wife needed an upgrade as well because she was still on a 1070. And so we both got RTX 4060s. I'm still using the Ryzen 3600. And that's what we game on. And it's like, well, you can't play Cyberpunk at max settings with that. You know what I play up there? I play Baldur's Gate 3. I play Schedule 1.
Yep.
I play Immortals Phoenix Rising. I play Wreckfest. I play those kinds of games. And you know what? So I can't play Baldur's Gate on ultra settings. I don't care.
You're still having fun.
I'm still having fun. That's what I'm playing games up there for.
Oh, so like this is one of my favorite GPUs to like throw people for a wrench, right? This is one that I have inside of my arcade cab for an emulation box, right? And I just have it out right now for benchmarking these other machines.
Is that a 630?
1030.
1030. Okay, yeah.
One of the worst GPUs in history. The 1030. It can't do anything.
Do you know what's really fun?
It can barely show a screen.
Do you know what's really fun about the 1030?
Yeah.
It'll play GTA 5 at 90 frames a second.
Right. But it's trash. It's a trash GPU, right?
Garbage.
It shouldn't exist. 2
gigabytes of VRAM, plays GTA 5 at 90 FPS, and that was 6 years ago.
If I remember correctly, this is only 4 lanes as well.
Something like that, yeah.
I think it's only 4 lanes looking at it. Yeah. So, I mean, just absolute trash tier across the board.
Yep.
It can't do anything except for have fun.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you see what's behind me, though, right? SNES games, N64 games, things like that. Those games have not become less fun because ray tracing exists.
Right.
Games have not become less fun just because a new piece of hardware or a new piece of technology comes out. It's just the next thing to experiment with. And I mean, they do enable new experiences, but it didn't erase the old experiences.
Yeah.
They're not gone.
And I will say this in defense of budget cards. Budget meaning $299 in this case, which kind of
3050.
3050.
3050.
Budget meaning RTX 5060. Budget meaning 9060 XT. Those are budget cards now.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but that's the answer. Budget gaming has never been capable of 4K Ultra, so why are we setting that as the benchmark? Because the 5090 can do it? That's what a Halo product is. When the 1060 came out, it was less than a third as capable as the GTX 1080. For a little over 1/3 the money. It was actually a terrible value proposition if you went frame per dollar against the GTX 1080. One of the best selling cards of all time.
Well, it's also interesting because everyone's like, oh, this is a 1080p card or this is a 1440 card or a 4K card, right? So we talked about, briefly mentioned some of my retro stuff. I have a Voodoo 5 rig, right?
Yeah.
The Voodoo 5 can output 1920 1080 and play games of its era at 60 frames a second at that resolution.
Yep.
And that was late 90s, early 2000s. That's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
We were already doing 1080p gaming.
Yep.
And cards are thousands of times faster now, and we're saying they're no longer 1080p cards.
Yeah. Except every card that exists is a 1080p card. there is more of a gap today that exists between the RTX 5060 and the RTX 5080 and 5090 than there was between the 1060 and the 1080 and the 1080 Ti. That is a wider gap in performance.
And that's something that's actually missed in a lot of the discussion that I see on like Reddit and Twitter and other places like that. Is that they're just looking at the model number, but not the number of cores, the CUDA cores behind it.
Right. And NVIDIA changed the calculation and changed what a 60 and a 70 and an 80 class card is along the way. You're also getting less for what you got back in the day as far as relative number of CUDA cores for your dollar. And so, you know, but the game has shifted, but that's with all consumer products.
Right.
We like to compare generation to generation, but you can't really compare relative performance across generations. It doesn't work.
So I have the easiest way to explain this to people because there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, this has X raster, that has Y raster, whatever. Like, let's go back in time to the early 2000s because benchmarks were broken and they had to be fixed and redone for CPUs.
Yeah.
Benchmarks for CPUs, they had actually going back to the 80s, we had whetstone and drystone, so integer versus floating point.
Yeah.
But then in the early 2000s, it's like, oh, we have the core 2. There's 2 cores on the chip now, 2 CPU cores.
Yeah.
And all the benchmarks were single-threaded. So that chip looked like trash. And to be fair, single-threaded applications ran like trash on it. But as soon as you put an application on there that's designed for multi-threading, like let's say a multimedia application or like video decoding, encoding, things like that, they were phenomenally faster because it could distribute the load accordingly. And so that's just the basics. And now today we have things going from the integer versus floating point. We have all these other extensions now. How we had like MMX, then 3D now, and now we're in the range of all the different AVX generations. GPUs have that same thing, and we're not having that discussion.
Yeah.
So it's not just the raster performance, but it's raster plus CUDA plus the RT cores, and like there's all these other subcomponents.
Plus your anti-aliasing calculations and all the things that we talked about a couple hours ago. Yeah.
But specifically with that is that the monitoring applications for GPUs right now have a single load metric. They're not showing the load on each individual section of the GPU. So it may be one thing that's bottlenecking inside of the GPU and the rest of it sitting idle. Because right now we're talking about CPU versus GPU bottlenecks, but what about the 10 different subsections of a GPU? One of them could be bottlenecked while the rest of them are sitting idle, and we're not monitoring for that and testing for that. And so right now I think benchmarking just kind of skewed and like all over the place because of that. And the thing is, once we get those kind of metrics, we can plug them into game engines during development and actually optimize the game engines better too, I think.
I haven't been very public with this, but I did discover something recently.
Yeah?
It's that 3D Mark is actually really freaking good.
Yeah?
What I mean by that is I started looking at composites of a lot of different reviewers of their overall benchmarking charts and their percentage differences between graphics cards and the hierarchy of where a graphics card sat and everything else. And I came down to, if you take the raw scores for Time Spy and Port Royal, which is DirectX 12 standard, not even the Ultra one, just DirectX 12, and Port Royal, which is 3D Mark's in-house ray tracing algorithm. You get within 2 to 3% of every reviewer composite for a graphics card. We as reviewers could literally run Port Royal and Time Spy and give you all the information for graphics card purchasing you ever needed, without going through days worth of frame testing and generation and highs and lows and things like that, because there's so many different factors in games. And the reason we test so many games is so you can see this game is CPU bound and this game is GPU bound and this game equals out across performance. There's something else holding us back here. And then this game is an outlier and this game performed very well on NVIDIA and really poor on AMD, or vice versa. And so we equal it out by testing, 20, 30, 40 games on all these individual cards and controlling all of our individual bottlenecks and all of our individual metrics.
Right.
However, 3D Mark is really freaking good at that.
That's the one thing they do. Admittedly, I've been using 3D Mark since I think in '99.
Yeah.
They might have a couple versions before that, but it used to be a running joke in my friend and family circle that my favorite game was 3D Mark.
Yeah.
Because I was just constantly benchmarking, tuning, tweaking, overclocking, like just doing that loop over and over again to get that one little 0.5% extra performance out of my system.
Yeah, it's not my most played game in my library, but it's in the top 5.
Well, no, because Wallpaper Engine.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you play more than Wallpaper Engine? I'm playing it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's for as much work as we do as reviewers.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much thing as data overload, and sometimes you just need to give an answer, and sure, sometimes we do need to dive into nitty gritty, and we find outlier cases of, hey, if you exceed the 8GB VRAM limit in these 3 titles, then your frame rate suffers because of memory transfer and storage loading speeds and things like that. We've discovered things like that in The Last of Us and some of the Tomb Raider games and whatnot. But there are other titles that even if you run out of VRAM, the virtual memory that the game utilizes still is able to maintain the frame buffer perfectly.
Right.
I'm trying to... the Doom Eternal does this phenomenally well. Doom Eternal will use 11 gigs of RAM at 4K Ultra.
Yeah.
And it doesn't suffer if your GPU only has 8. No one talks about that.
Well, and it's interesting because like id Software has actually published how that works.
Yeah.
Like just right now, anybody who's watching the stream, if you're curious, because we're not going to get into the technical details, go look up what a megatexture is.
Yeah.
They use something called megatextures in the EdTech engine, and it's a phenomenal tech. And think of just like your normal operating system, how it will use RAM to cache files. The Doom engine or the EdTech engine will do something pseudo caching for textures in a way that it will just try to maximize the amount of video RAM you have.
Yeah.
And you have less, you just technically have less cache.
Yeah.
And it can deal with that, and it will do things. Everything is dynamic.
Yeah.
It doesn't use texturing like any other engine out there, basically.
This actually kind of correct, but same company. Bethesda actually developed that for the Skyrim engine for the way they compress their textures. And rather than having a texture for each individual rock, they have a rock texture that applies to a surface and can scatter and replicate itself properly enough, which significantly reduces the amount of VRAM that you have to have. Now, you still have to load that texture and the model and then wrap it, but it makes the streaming of that texture so much easier in your final render.
Yeah, so that's a little bit different than what megatextures are.
Yeah.
Like I said, like megatexture could be a 10-hour talk by itself on all the cool shit that it does. Like I'd love to get into the tech, but I'm also a couple drinks in and I couldn't do that right now.
Welcome to the show, Vince.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I guess, is 8 gigabytes of video RAM enough for most gamers?
Most, yes.
I would say yes.
For most. And the thing is, like, again, there's going to be the people who be like, oh, well, this benchmark or this game or this one thing. And it's like, yeah, 5 or 10 games.
Yeah.
Out of the tens of thousands in the library.
Yeah.
And what are people playing right now?
Not those games.
Esports titles, Among Us, like you said, Baldur's Gate. Like,
go look at the Steam DB. In fact, I'll pull that up right now.
Yeah. Like, what is being played on Steam right now at this
Steam
very
DB,
second?
most played games, and I'm going to sort by 24-hour peak, okay? So the last 24 hours. You let me know when you find a game that will suffer with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, okay?
Oh, man. Dota 2, totally.
Counter-Strike, PUBG, Dota 2, Apex Legends, Bongo Cat, Delta Force, Rematch Beta Test, Helldivers 2. That one at 4K, that can start pushing things. But I guarantee most people are not playing Helldivers 2 at 4K Ultra. Most are probably playing at 1080 medium, 1080 high, 1440p medium. It's a demanding game, but it's also a Twitch shooter, which means you value frame rates more than eye candy.
Yep.
Know your game, know your audience, know your demographics. Marvel Rivals, Naraka Blade Point, Rust, Wallpaper Engine. Hey, look, there it is.
Yep. Like I said, I'm playing it right now.
Banana, Monster Hunter Wild, Stardew Valley, Grand Theft Auto 5 Legacy, Baldur's Gate 3, Call of Duty War Thunder, EA Sports FC 25, Football Manager 2024, Dead by Daylight, Rainbow Six Siege, Repo, Space War, GTA 5 Enhanced. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. There's more people playing Skyrim than are playing Cyberpunk right now. There's more people playing Waifu. Like, I understand. Not all games work well with 8 gigs. If you are one of those gamers and you understand those limitations,
you spend the money.
You spend the money and you buy a card that will. Or you understand the limitations and you lower your settings down from 4K Ultra or 1440p Ultra and you play your games accordingly. But most people aren't buying 4K monitors. Most people are buying 1440p, 120, 144 hertz monitors. Most people are buying 60 series graphics cards. For that use case, 8 gigs is still fine.
Most people are buying a Toyota Corolla to go buy groceries or go to work.
Yes.
They're not going to the drag track.
Yep.
There are people that want to go drag race or go to the loops or whatever, and they're going to buy the specialized hardware. It's the same thing in this ecosystem. There are overwhelming majority of people can get by with a normal 8 gig card.
Yep.
And the people that want more, they want their Ferrari. And admittedly, and I'm still going to bash NVIDIA for this one, I use 10 gig cards because NVIDIA skimped out hard on the 3080.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason that should have been a 10 gig card in the era that it came out and for the price that it cost.
Nope. I would also agree with that with the 3070. The 3070 should have been a 12 gig card.
Yeah, but I honestly, I think that's actually another reason, not just the Steam Deck, but because the popularity and the lower VRAM spec of the 1080 is what's holding a lot of engines back. Is that because that is a compute heavy card without the VRAM to back it up.
Right.
And so is the company going to be like, oh, we're going to release our game and it requires 12, the card only has 10, and so the game is going to suffer terribly on what should be a performant card. They're going to get blasted in their reviews.
Yep. As well they should for what was a $1,000 card.
And not just blasted in the reviews, consumers are going to hit that refund button, and that hurts the company financially.
But at $299 for an 8 gig card, if you're gaming at 1080p or 1440,
yeah,
I think it's perfectly reasonable today. And there's no reason to put 16 gigs in a card in which gamers aren't ever going to utilize it. That's actually costing the consumer more money if they do that.
Yeah.
So there's a flip side to this conversation of, do you want 16 gigs in the cards? They're going to be $50 more expensive. Are you okay with that trade-off? And as a lot of gamers that I know of in the $299 price point, no, they're probably not.
Like, there is a little bit of a counter argument here, but I want to just say it and then shoot it down.
Go for it.
Like I said, I used to use a RX 570 and the RX 480. Both of those were 8 gig cards. That was a long time ago, and they were both around the 300 price point at launch.
Yes.
But the thing is that, like, we like to look at the quantity of RAM, but not the performance of the RAM. And I mean, this has been an argument that I've gotten into a lot with the way that Apple upcharges for their RAM as well. Is that, like, DDR3 to 4 to 5, and then the different GPU types, the GDDRs and whatnot, like, as the RAM gets faster, that makes not only the RAM more expensive, but it makes the PCB manufacturing and design phase more expensive.
Signaling integrity, your quality of traces and components. Yep.
It's not just the quantity, it is also the quality. And that we are using significantly higher quality parts to make this stuff work.
Yep.
And so some of the cost is going into that as well.
Yep.
So I just wanted to say that because it is a thought that I've had in my mind, and I have to keep reminding myself that no, like, yeah, I had an 8 gig card like 8 years ago, but it was slow RAM.
Yeah.
Very slow video RAM compared to what we have today.
Yep. Cosworth sends over another $2. Problem, Jeff. Are your viewers most gamers? I got popular because of AliExpress builds. Yes, I think my viewers
X99.
are most gamers.
X99, straight up.
Yeah.
You are Mr. X99.
Yeah. I have a certain following. That doesn't mean I don't have enthusiasts and elitists and whatnot in my community, but Cos, I know what your gaming rigs look like too. So,
we also know what they sound like.
Right. I've seen your handiwork. I know what my average gamers look like. Love you, buddy. And he also says, I'm insulted, Jeff. I play Helldivers 2 at 4K. I was to say, I also have a 4K gaming rig, and I think we'll end with this. That, you know, my main gaming rig that I play Baldur's Gate and Schedule 1 and games like that on, yeah, that's up in my living room, and it's an RTX 4060 and a Ryzen 3600. I also have, down here, a 7900 X3D with an RTX 5080 in it. I didn't have the 5090 in there because my UPS didn't like that, and so I have the 5080 in there. But that's hooked up to a Gigabyte AO43. It's their 43-inch 4K 144 hertz HDR10 panel. 1,000 nits. Freaking gorgeous. Cosworth, you know the monitor because you bought one on Craigslist, and I'm really pissed off at how much you got that for because I had to spend $1,200 on mine. But I have the RTX 5080. Guess what? I have DLSS and frame gen and everything else enabled for every game that supports it because I want my 144 hertz, damn it. And I have the horsepower to drive it. Sure, 4K native at 60 for a lot of games, sometimes 75, 80, but I paid for 144 hertz. I don't care if I turn on 1x frame gen in Cyberpunk to get the 144 hertz. It's a better experience. It looks better. I'm not looking for graphical anomalies when I'm having fun. You know, so I turn it on for every game that it's enabled for. And according to NVIDIA, everyone else does too. So another feather in the cap of enthusiasts that they're going to be pissed off at, but there you go.
And that's just one other thing I want to bring up, just because you kind of alluded to it there, is that sure, it's great looking at a chart and see number go up and number faster, number bigger, but we all have constraints in the real world we're living with.
Mm-hmm.
So like it may be noise, it may be power, like you brought up the power, like your UPS literally cannot handle a 5090. So you went down to a 5080. Like sure, the rig may have been able to handle it, but like you want to have that power protection because I mean you don't want it catching fire for some reason. Not that GPUs do that at all.
Right,
not
right.
Not that GPU would ever do that.
Not that card in particular has a history.
Yeah, but it's but like how I am building this tiny rig for my mother right now, right? Like I want something that she can slide underneath her monitor, and there's sometimes there's different or weird constraints, and so all these people online arguing back and forth about, oh, this is better than that or this is better than that type stuff. It's like, well, take a step back. Was there another constraint you didn't consider?
Yeah. What was there something in your build plan? During Computex, Corsair came out with the new 5400D case, and it is a full ATX chassis designed for maximum performance, maximum airflow, maximum cooling. It has 3 different chambers on it, one of which is a chamber simply for a 360 millimeter radiator that has a cold air intake and doesn't vent the hot air into your chassis. It has a separate intake for your graphics card designed for blow-through graphics cards, including a RAM air duct to force the air and actually accelerate it into your graphics cards. And then a third chamber for your power supply.
Nice.
It's a gorgeous case. It looks great. However, that air RAM that leads air into your graphics card covers all of your expansion slots on an ATX board.
Ooh.
I have a 100 gig network card. I can't use that case.
Capture card.
Yep, I have a capture card. I have a network card. I've got an NVMe sled. I've got something. Yeah. I can't use that case. Gorgeous case.
Yeah.
Absolutely worth it if you're looking for the maximum airflow and maximum cooling possible. But I have a constraint which makes that system unviable. And everyone has a circumstance. There's a reason not everyone builds small form factor. It's because there's always concessions that you make. There's a reason not everyone buys the highest end graphics cards. It's because money is a concession that you have to make.
Yeah.
Why do I use a 4060 upstairs? I don't want the noise. I don't want the heat. That's a constraint within my build parameters.
Why am I going with a 3050? It's like I want a full computer that can sit underneath a monitor and take up as little desk space as possible while still being plenty of performant. And that card is like 10 times faster than like what I need for that rig.
Yeah.
So why would I need like a 4080 or whatever, or 5090 or something, when the actual application will never touch that performance?
Right.
Cool. Number go up. That's all that matters.
Yep.
Just number go up.
Performance is but one metric.
Bigger number better. That's all that matters.
Bigger number better.
Yep. I know how to do this reviewer thing. I got it figured out.
That's right. Well, cool. Vince, thank you for joining. That was a heck of a lot of fun.
Totally. Yeah. Love it. Love it.
All right. This has been Talking Heads, episode 384. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news right here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure to like the video. Leave a comment down below. Vince, where can we find you?
Circuit Rewind. Literally just look me up on Bluesky or YouTube. And by the way, 384, I think, is how many gigs of RAM I have in one of my servers.
That sounds about... Yeah, this is a nice round number, actually.
Yeah, well, for the binary people, we're in that nice round number today.
Yeah, it's a 256 plus a 128. It's the perfect number.
Yeah. So hit me up on YouTube or Bluesky, and I'll tell you how awesome you are.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Actually, I already have both your links down in the description as well.
Cool.
So, yeah,
nice, thank you.
Way ahead of you. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific. And as always, we'll see you next week. Cheers, everyone.